Okay, and we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gravity Max live stream. So today is February 23rd. I don't know why.
Wow, we're off to just a thrilling start to this episode.
I don't know why, but the number 23 just feels associated with November.
I kind of get that sense as well.
Right? I don't know why, but I was just like, oh, the 23rd, that must mean it's November. Okay,
yeah. It's probably November in, like, China.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, whatever month it is a Sunday. I know that, and that means that it is time for the Gravity Max live stream. So yeah, so we're here. I'm a little bit sick, maybe, I don't know. I might have a cold or something.
He's got some pathogens.
Yeah, so I'm not like 100%, as you can tell by the November remark, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
So this is going to be a fun stream.
It is.
Because Max is delirious. I'm clueless as always. But we are joined today by Sophia. Say hi.
Hi. Hello.
Hi. So, you saw the title of this live stream. Our topic today is going to be based around sci-fi. And Soph over here is very well versed in sci-fi and specifically Star Wars. We actually, I don't know if you know this, but we talked about you 2 streams ago. You were on the Butterfly Effect slide, or the Butterfly Effect live stream.
Yeah.
It was the butterfly effect of me saying execute order 66 in class, and then picked up on that, and now you're on our live stream.
Yeah.
So that's a good call to that.
It is a good example of the butterfly effect, though.
So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank
you for having me.
Cool.
So let's get into the plugs.
Before we start with the plugs, make sure to leave questions in the comments below. Things got pretty, not out of hand, but there was a lot of chat last episode, so we weren't able to read all of it. So if you have a question for us, if you have something that you want us to read out, make sure to say Gravity Max : blah blah blah, because then it's highlighted in red in the comment section, so I can read that. Of course, if there isn't too much chat, I'll just read it all. So, anyways, this video is not intended for children under 13 years old. If you are under 13 years old, please do not watch this video, as the topics we discuss are meant for those with at least a high school level of education. If you are not 13, you will not understand the scientific topics discussed in this video. There we go. Speedrun. I can be sick, and I can be on my deathbed, and I'll be like, this video is not intended for children under 13 years old. But yeah, it's just hammered in there. So visit the Gravity Max website. I have, a book preview, like a preview to my book, the first chapter, but you should just buy it. So if you want to read
I mentioned this last stream. Finish the book in my top 5 books.
Yep.
Very good book.
Thank you. Yeah. So check that out. Check out the website. Also, you should follow or friend or also follow. Those are the 3 words for these websites. On these social media websites, because we make daily posts about various things, including but not limited to the Gravity Max live stream. We also talk about the videos that are uploaded on Wednesday. We also, talk about random things. But when we don't have, when we felt too repetitive for a while, then I just be like, okay, I need something different. But follow these social media platforms, because you will be updated and reminded that there is going to be a live stream. And the links are in the description, so check them out. Also, of course, follow Sebastian on social media, on Instagram Karl Marksman, and on YouTube at 128 seconds. The links are also in the description. Is it still that one photo? The best photo?
Let me check. I think it is. And I think someone liked it someone that's followed me for like a while literally just liked it like yesterday, and I was like, where have you been, and how did you find this again? But yeah, it's still that one photo, but what I'm more proud of is my YouTube channel. I run the channel 128 seconds, where I summarize any topic. Right now, I just finished my last video, which was World War One. You can see it on this channel as well, but eventually we're gonna stop posting them here, and they're gonna become exclusive to my channel.
Yep.
I've mostly covered scientific topics, but as you can see, the last one was like history related. Mm-hmm. So I cover a wide range of things, and it's all in under 128 seconds.
Yeah, definitely go check out Sebastian's channel. His videos, they will become 128 seconds exclusives, and I'll need to figure out something else to put up on Wednesdays. Let's see. We'll figure that out later, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I can just pull a Yui and just upload a 4-hour stream of me editing a video.
Because that's creative.
Exactly. But yeah, definitely check out, follow Sebastian's social media. Check out his channel. Really great channel. Okay. So, buy A Truly Dead Rock on Amazon.com. I've sold like 50-ish copies, maybe like 55. So definitely like buy it. It's a science fiction novel, and it's really great. I have a synopsis on my website and like a preview first chapter. So go read that, because right now Is
there a Spark Notes?
Spark Notes. Truly Dead Rock? Exactly. Yeah. Go check out the website to see those the synopsis and the first chapter, because I don't feel very like fit to lead right now. I don't feel very. I'm like, I don't need right now. A summary will not sound good. So just this is what do you call it? Motive to check out the website. Yeah, I'm dropping words. Let's venture on. Okay. Elements of sci-fi. So science fiction. That is what my book is, and that is my favorite genre of books and movies. Science fiction. It's just great.
Science and fiction?
Yeah, together.
What is this? A crossover episode?
Exactly. Science and fiction together. It's not like, it's not nonfiction, and it's not just plain old regular fiction about real life people. That would be stupid. So instead, it's a crossover. It's a combination, and it's fun. And I like it, and you two like it, so that's what we're gonna talk about. All right,
it's great, love it. Probably, I would say, judging by my favorite books, I would say that sci-fi is probably my favorite genre. That and fantasy. And fantasy is basically just sci-fi, but without as much math.
Yeah.
Currently, I mentioned this, or we talked about it a lot on our last stream, but I have my own book in the works right now. I think I have 5 pages.
Yeah, and they're pretty good 5 pages. I like them.
Oh, thank you. But it's definitely one of the more fun topics to play around with, in my experience anyways.
Yeah.
And it's been adapted into like movies, as we're going to talk about, and it's been around for quite a bit. I would say humans have like postulated about like space and future technologies for like as long as technology has even been around. So yeah,
it's funny you mentioned your second favorite genre. My second favorite genre is definitely alternate history, which is funny because it's pretty much just time travel without the time traveler. It's just self-induced, which is fun. So, should we get to our first slide?
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Common themes. So these are some common themes that you'll see throughout sci-fi, whether it's a movie, a book, or some alternate dimension that you can peer into. But these are some common themes that you should recognize.
Yep. All right. So, first theme. Okay. Technology. if you
We
have
have technology.
if you have seen the show Black Mirror, then you have this theme exhibited very well. I don't know. I can't. Anyways,
Heavily, very heavily.
yeah, it's the theme of technology in Black Mirror is portrayed negatively, I would say, in every episode.
Yeah, pretty
I'm
negatively.
trying to think of one episode where no wait, there's one episode where it was good. If like the Hang the DJ episode or whatever, with the like futuristic dating app and like it's all like yay. That one was fine, but usually it's a negative. It's that technology bad. So yeah, this theme, we'll talk about things that are overused in a bit. We'll talk about tropes, but sometimes this theme can get a little heavy-handed, and it just kind of shows someone that's like, I don't know, not the best with technology, because you don't want to portray technology as 100% bad, because it's brought many good things as well. But oftentimes,
looking at you, Ray Bradbury.
Exactly. But many times technology is portrayed as a negative, and is shown that like technology disrupts how people live their lives. It changes the way people live. It makes things seem unnatural, and it makes things worse. That's one theme of technology. Another theme of technology in sci-fi could be that it's helpful. It's a good thing. Let's see. In A Truly Dead Rock, the stance on technology, I would say, is neutral to it's more what is it? It's like ambivalent. It's saying that this is like my take on it. My take is that humans will have problems because we are humans, and the level of technology will not change that. It'll only change the types of problems we have. So that's kind of like how I go with it. But oftentimes the theme like technology is used as just a negative like thing for the antagonists to use against the protagonists. But yeah, so that's the
Yeah, so in my writing right now, like I do have a plan for the book. I'm not winging it as I go. So even though I have 5 pages in my general universe and the world that's set in, technology is seen as a good thing, as a lot of characters actually rely on technology to be like successful in whatever they try and do. But it's people that manufacture the technology that are kind of not as moral as everyone else. They're kind of looked down upon in my books, like big corporations that pump out technology.
Yep.
They're the real issue, at least in my book, anyways.
That's interesting.
But yeah, Soph, how do you feel about?
Boy, I mean, technology. I don't know. You're talking about Black Mirror before, and I was thinking about the that episode Bandersnatch. And first of all, I really like that episode. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it was interesting because it was technology in like, what was it, like in the 80s or something? Yeah. And so Black Mirror kind of gave off that vibe, I guess, that technology is bad in any era. And so I thought that was interesting. But as far as like relating to sci-fi,
it was said in 1980.
As far as relating to sci-fi, let's see. I mean, in Star Wars, you have your technology. You have like your hyperdrives and lightsabers and all of that. But I think it kind of, if something's taking place in the future, you kind of have to have that. It just makes sense that there would be like really advanced technology. So
that's a good point. That it's a common theme and like common trope, but it's kind of inevitable or inevitable. No, inevitable. Jesus, I'm getting your Max's dyslexia over here.
Yep.
I think you passed the pathogen. Over Discord.
Yeah, from like 1,500 miles. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But you can't really get around it unless you're writing some sort of apocalyptic thing where everything has been destroyed
Yeah.
and all technology is gone.
Yeah, and
Like,
that's an
that's
interesting
really
one
the only way you can
too.
get around it.
Like in Larry Niven's Ring World, they have this huge like mega structure. Then they just kind of forgot how to do things, which is funny. But it's interesting. They have that regression setting. Sometimes just because they don't really like the author doesn't want future technology in their story. Like they want their story to be about something else other than future technology. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so technology, this is going into how you kind of, and like our first ever stream on the Gravity Max live stream was no, Future Technologies was the second one, right?
Well, it was Timeline for the Future was the first
Yeah,
one.
that was the first one.
And Sci-Fi Technologies was the second one. So kind of fused them.
So yeah, we've talked about this a lot, and even for Timeline for the Future, technology was a pretty. Is your brother all right?
Yeah.
My brother's. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Fine.
It's okay. 2 episodes ago, we had Yui Films call us from his car.
Yeah,
that went much worse.
Production quality has dropped. It has plummeted. But still the same great flavor of live stream.
Yep. Like the pink starburst.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sorry, I just had a lot of pink starburst today. A lot of starburst in general, and I'm like, the pink ones are the best ones.
The pink ones are the best ones.
Yeah.
Anywho, what was I talking about?
Our first.
Oh yeah. Our like second stream was about science fiction technologies. Oh, we actually wrote a script for that one, like a loose script back when
intro script
when we put work into this live stream. we still put work into it.
The script,
but looking at this, it's a lot of teleportation, timelines, the multiverse,
nice,
perpetual motion machines, entropy reversal, anti-gravity, probability manipulation, quantum mechanics, all that kind of stuff.
Those technologies that you're mentioning, this is an interesting one. That kind of technology that's just outside of known physics, they are often used by authors just so that, like, it would take, 4.2 years to get to the nearest star, but they want their story to happen in a few weeks. So they say, oh, hyperdrive, you can get to Alpha Centauri in like a day. And it's a bit like, I wouldn't call it lazy. It just means that you want to focus on something else other than the fact that it takes 4.2 years to get to the nearest star. And that's fine. But, sometimes it can be a little like, feel a little hand wavy. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. So there's technology.
So Max bypasses this by being lazy and having his story take place on the moon, which is like closer. An hour's drive away from.
Exactly. It takes, right now it takes 3 days because we just do a little orbital trajectory. But if you wanted to just flip and burn your way there, it would just take an hour, really.
Yeah. Oh, I just want to see how long it would take to drive to the moon. I'm just throwing in the calculations.
Okay. Let's see. So we have chat. KCC says, don't stream for 2 hours this time, Kay. And I say to that, do you not see the trend?
Who is... Listen here, KCC. I see you're a Slytherin, so I should have known you're scummy, but look at this. You can't walk into our house and disrespect our live stream.
Oh, no.
You scum of the earth.
No, don't antagonize.
You absolute worm food.
Don't antagonize.
But thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you for watching. Don't antagonize the audience. Yeah, no. Most of our streams, I would say, go for more than 2 hours, so your pleas will go unheard. If you want to watch a real fun stream, go to that all-nighter stream. That was interesting. Anyways, yeah. So technology.
Yeah, so if you were to floor it all the way to the moon,
Yep.
you would get there in about 99 days.
Oof, that's a long road trip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so the themes with technology are either technology is bad, or they do technology is just, they just use it so that their story is more convenient. But the best way to write technology is to have it be nuanced. So you want to show both the good and the bad sides of technology. You want to show both what it can do and what it can't do. That's really important. Because I forgot who said this, but someone says, like, if you want to write like good futuristic technology in sci-fi, you have to focus on the limitations of that technology rather than like what it can do. So, say there's an advanced like medicine in the future and people live a really long time, then you have to showcase what that medicine can't cure. What it can't fix. Or if you have, a drive that moves really fast, you still have to show that, hey, it might be able to, go 10,000 light years in a matter of weeks, but it'll still take weeks. So that way, it keeps an actual, like, what do you call it? Stakes. It keeps stakes in the plot.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if it's...
I thought you were a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Hit it, Mike!
Ha ha ha.
Yeah, we don't have our live drum set anymore.
Yeah.
But that was fun. But you need to make sure to showcase the limitations of your technology in a sci-fi story. Otherwise, there are no stakes to the story. Because if you just assign a random amount of time to how long it takes to get somewhere, and it's inconsistent, then the audience is like, oh, okay, I know exactly how long it's going to take to get there. It's going to take as long as is convenient for the story. So whatever you do when writing a story, you don't want to write a story that seems lazy to the audience. You don't want there to just be plot conveniences, just like, oh, there you go. They just so happen to get there in the nick of time, even though that would be moving like 3 times faster than we've established they can go at, Like, that's something you have to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it for me for technology.
Yeah. You got anything else for technology, Self?
I mean, I think you guys pretty much covered it.
Yeah, so
Cool.
Technology. I like technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's what allows this live stream to exist.
It is.
It allows Darth Vader to exist.
It does.
Or else he would just die of whatever tuberculosis he has.
Yep.
Oh no, that's General Grievous.
General
yeah,
Grievous, yeah.
Tuberculosis.
Yeah.
Darth
Darth Vader would die of his severe burns,
Yeah.
3rd degree, 4th degree burns. No, I know 4th degree. It's not real, but yeah, 3rd degree burns.
So yeah,
Yep.
we do have technology, and
Uh-huh.
let's move on to the next one.
Sure. Dystopia. This is a fun one.
Dystopia.
Yeah, so...
Not a utopia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dis meaning
Go ahead.
opposite, meaning not. So yeah, dystopias are an interesting theme, and they are used in stories to show that this pathway that society is going down currently is not a good one, and it'll lead to this if we let it go for too long. That's what the author is communicating typically. And so if you think of, 1984 or Fahrenheit 451, they showcase dystopias and they say, look at how things are going. We don't want things to go like that. That's the typical theme in a dystopian novel. So yeah, Fahrenheit 451 basically talks about how it isn't really the problem that they're burning books. The problem is that people's attention spans are getting way too short, and that, people are just like watching screens for a few seconds. And keep in mind that this was written before Vine existed, so perfectly predicted that. 6-second videos.
I know, I was gonna say that. I was gonna say Vine.
Yeah, exactly. So human attention spans have decreased. Thankfully, we haven't arrived at a Fahrenheit 451-esque dystopia, at least not yet. But regardless, that was the tale that story was trying to tell. It was saying, look, people have to keep reading, people have to get longer attention spans. We have to stop this trend of decreasing attention spans. Otherwise, we'll all end up like this. So that's what your dystopian story is saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So this image that you see before you is actually a very good representation of the setting of my story.
Uh-huh.
Like Max threw this in, and I looked at this and I was like, this is like my story right here.
Yeah.
And this is, I feel like, just talking about this image real quick, what you see is like tons of like advertisements over here, like on the buildings, like holographic ads. And we're not too far off from that. Like if you think about like Times Square, we have those
totally.
massive ads, just massive screens full of full of advertisements, full of people trying to get you to like watch or buy or like go somewhere.
Yeah.
And another interesting detail about this is if you look, especially that butterfly thing in the front, that has like, I think that's Japanese characters. I might be wrong with that, but it's a common thing that you see in a lot of space movies, like sci-fi space movies, that it's Asian countries that have like populated the stars and like space and stuff, and that's because a lot of companies are based out of those areas, and that's going into this, how companies can actually propel innovation and like space travel, and also like civilization and just infrastructure as a whole. And that is another big part of my story. But going off of my story, the dystopia aspect has been tackled in a ton of different ways. Humans absolutely love dystopia, which is why like the Hunger Games was so popular.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And the
YA novels in general, and all the ones that have been made into movies. There's this trend. There's like Divergent, Hunger Games. Like you have these movies that are just based on like teenagers in a dystopian society, and it's so funny. But for some reason, that's just so popular.
We have chat from.
Oh yeah, we do have chat from Daikaiju Productions.
One of my favorite guests.
Yep, we have Dystopia, Witchtopia. Why not Dattopia?
Hit it, Mike!
Wonderful witticisms right there.
He says, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, John. Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry, John. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Anyways, yeah, that's great. Punny. So, let's see, what else? Yeah, Dystopia. Dystopia is a great tool, but again, you don't want to make it tired and cliche. If you think of, Hunger Games and Divergent do feel fairly riddled with cliche, I would say. Because they're they're popular books. There's a difference between, there's critically acclaimed books, and then there's just popular books. And to a certain degree, I usually side with what the what's popular, what the populace likes. Usually I think critics are a bit out of touch, but in a few situations, the critics, whose job it is to rate movies, I would say, do get it right once in a while. Because a lot of dystopian novels can be like really cliche, really tired, like don't offer anything new to the table. Like, if you think of dystopia as a genre meant to show some element of society that is going too far and that we shouldn't allow to continue, right? If you think of like it's some trend in society that, if continued, will result in this horrible society being created. What conceivable future will breed the Hunger Games? That's my question to the audience, right? It's not the dystopia becomes less impactful because it isn't really a cautionary tale anymore. It's not saying anything about like the way our society is going, because society is not going in the direction of having 24 children fight to the death for no apparent reason, right? And yeah, Divergent. Society isn't going in the direction of people being separated into like 5 clans and just having to pick them at the age of 18. Yeah, factions. So it's like that's an issue with some of these tales, I think, because they aren't really showcasing anything concerning. Whereas Fahrenheit 451 in 1984 are really impactful stories because you feel like, oh my gosh, things can actually become like this. I don't want that to happen. But with The Hunger Games or Divergent, it's not as realistic, you know? That's what I think.
So, yeah, with dystopias, so would you consider Star Wars dystopia, like with the Empire and stuff?
I don't know. Not really. I mean, somebody could probably build an argument for it, but I feel like Star Wars really falls in like that sci-fi, fantasy.
Yeah, that also raises a pretty big question: is how far gone does a society have to be for it to be considered a dystopia, like quote unquote? Because like in Star Wars, like there is for some of the movies, there is the Empire, which is like evil, and there are rebels who are good. But like the Empire is like ruling over planets and like the galaxy and all of that. But I wouldn't consider it a dystopia either, And one could probably build up the argument to do that, but all that does is we need to figure out a definition, and I'm going to look up the definition.
Also,
it's probably just going to say opposite of utopia.
Probably. But also you have those...
How do you discern that?
Yeah, and you have those like Empire apologist people that like look at the whole thing in like a weird context, and they're like, actually the Empire was good, and I'm like, no, get out of here.
Here it says, the definition given is an imagined state or society in which there is great suffering or injustice, typically one that is totalitarian or post-apocalyptic.
So here's the thing: if the definition is just a state or society in which there is great injustice, that's probably every country in the world.
Yeah, but it says this is what it says. It says an imagined.
Oh, imagined. State. Well, yeah.
So that's also interesting. So the like we said in our last stream, or maybe it was the stream before, but like you can never actually reach a utopia.
Oh, that's
because
true.
Like it's impossible to achieve. But this definition also suggests that it's actually impossible to reach a dystopia.
Huh. So that's like the positive. That's like the positive.
The silver lining,
Yeah. But yeah, well, I would say that you could make an argument that like any modern nation, excluding the imagined part, right? If you were to just look at the part where there is great injustice and suffering, there are a lot of people that would claim their country is that. Like, even in America, there are probably people that are like, there's great suffering and injustice. And definitely there is for some people. But you wouldn't typically think of this as a dystopia unless you do, and in which case, like, great. Have your worldview. But the point is, right, that it's difficult to actually have a dystopia. It's hard to have a definition for it. Because, I don't know. So in my story, I specifically, like in my writing, I don't want to write dystopias. I want to write societies in the future that have benefits and drawbacks. Like in A Truly Dead Rock, there are both good things and bad things about life on the moon. And I did that intentionally because I think that a story like kind of hits home better if there are both good things and bad things about a society, so that you can say like, oh yeah, this is something we would want to avoid in this society. But the thing about dystopias is that they can kind of be distancing, because a lot of people, if you've lived in a country like that isn't a dystopia and where things are generally good for most people, then you'll just think like, that could never happen, and the themes won't hit so close to home. But if you have a society where a lot of things are good and there are also a lot of aspects that are bad, then you can look at those aspects and like more thoughtfully be like, yeah, this is a realistic situation I could foresee. I would not want this to happen, like this one aspect, so we should keep that in mind in the future. So that's why I like to write, ambitopian. There you go. That's just everything that's not utopian or dystopian. Ambitopian.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. Maybe there's an actual word, but I'm just gonna say ambi. Ambi's probably not the right prefix, because I bet how there's like 20 different prefixes for like not. You've got dis,
Yeah.
des, like un, a, right? You've
In.
got all that. Yeah, in. You have so many different prefixes, because English is a bit of a mess, and so people are probably going to be like, oh, utopia, dystopia, you wouldn't have ambitopia. That's not the Greek prefix. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, get out, leave. I don't care. That's the thing. I don't care. So yeah, that's dystopia.
Yeah. So, do you enjoy reading dystopias, Soph?
Yeah, I do, but they get kind of repetitive, with like Maze Runner and
Yep, that's another
like
one.
Divergent and like the Fifth Wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but
what?
I just wanted to just. There's a subreddit called "The Empire Did Nothing Wrong."
Oh no.
And I'm just looking at that right now. Like as soon as you said that, like there are I know you said earlier.
Yep.
Something about the Empire, and I was like,
yep.
Oh my god, I think there's a subreddit. So it's great.
Closely related to Thanos did nothing wrong, right? Yeah. Yeah, those are interesting.
So what I would like to see, and no examples of this really come to my mind. Like I would say Fahrenheit 451 probably comes the closest to this.
Yeah.
But isn't exactly the vision I have. But it would be an arguably dystopian society, but it's just that the grand majority of the populace has been led to believe something that isn't actually true. And with Fahrenheit 451, that's just like books are evil. So it's like, I feel like that would be kind of interesting to read, because that's more of what happens today, and that's kind of the closest that we can actually get to a dystopia in the world that we find ourselves in right now. Yeah. Because there are like some countries where people are either cut off from information or are given wrong information, and so the majority of the populace believes that incorrect information, and they still like go about their lives.
Yep.
Like
kind of cough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like you see what I'm trying to do.
Yep.
You know what I'm trying to say. But
yeah. No. We're totally talking about those American pigs. Yeah. We're approved by Xi Jinping, right? We can exist in China as a live stream and capitalize off the market.
Did someone say capitalist?
Oh no. Yeah, exactly.
But so dystopias, I feel like you said, they get kind of repetitive. So a way to make them less repetitive is to make them more realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to say. Probably you said that a lot better than I was saying it. I was like, circling around that. But dystopias, like, they're, not, they can become repetitive. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting theme, but it can be overused, and you want to make sure that it's something that you could conceivably see happening, and you might want to add some flavor, some spice, some nuance to your dystopia so that it is not as tired as the rest of them. So, yeah. Cool. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. Space. Space is a big theme in science fiction because a lot of stories take place in space. Mine does. Sebastian's does. Star Wars does. So, that's an exhaustive list. um, that's all you need to know about science fiction and space. But yeah, so space is a very common thing in science fiction just because it offers so many new settings, right? If you
Yeah.
are just looking at a story that takes place on Earth, like every continent, all the peninsulas, the seas, the oceans, like you've got everything figured out. Like wherever your story takes place, you can be like, oh, okay, that's France, or like that's Morocco, like oh, that's I don't know, Thailand. Like you can see the locations on Earth, and you can be like, it adds context, it gives you context based on the known history of that location. But if you want your own context, you don't want, human history to meddle with the purity of your story, then you can set it on a whole other planet that has its own history that you have created, and there is, not as much context that the reader can just add to it. So it offers more creative freedom, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, with space, there's so many different kinds of worlds. There's so many different kinds of like star stuff that can really only happen like in space on different planets, and even just space itself is just such a big and such a great area of research that with like the information that we have, the data that we've gathered on it, it's cool to play around with that part of like sci-fi, kind of like how like the movie Gravity. I forget when that came out. That was like a while ago.
Yeah, that was a while
right?
ago.
I'm calling Gravity. Yeah, that came out in 2013. So
yeah, I remember being in a movie theater and going to see something that wasn't the movie Gravity, and then like someone like in the like theater being like, "Oh, are you gonna see Gravity?" And I'm like, "No, I'm seeing something." And they're like, "You gotta see Gravity," and I'm like, "Okay."
And that's how you got the name Gravity Max.
Yep. Yeah, the trauma.
Because you were traumatized by that random guy in a movie theater.
Yeah, no, I don't know why, but they really like the movie Gravity.
But yeah, anyways, my point for bringing it up is that it doesn't have to happen on a different planet. It can literally just happen on a space station that happens to be in space.
Yeah.
But it's cool because like if you're not on a planet and not near any major celestial body, there's no gravity.
Yep.
So you can just float around lackadaisically.
Yeah.
But also there's like great danger, because if you take off your suit helmet in space, you got like a minute, maybe less, to like put it back on.
Yeah, you've got a minute, and maybe only like 15 seconds of it you're conscious for. But yeah, space is interesting. That's a very interesting aspect to it. But another aspect is that humanity has always looked to space in awe and has been like, wow, space. In fact, so humanity has always looked to the sky, like it's always been a thing of wonder, right? So stories set in space also invoke that, wondrous, mysterious, like tone, right? But I was also going to mention the story. So last night I was at an event at my school, an astronomy night event at my school, and it was really cool. So I saw 3 satellites, right? Just looking up, not even through a telescope. I just saw 3 satellites. The first one, I was just looking up at the sky, as you do, and I'm like, hey, that really dim star is moving. Huh, isn't that funny? And so then I was like, okay, that's a satellite. I don't know what the satellite's name was, just because I happened to see it. But then what I did was I looked for the paths of some specific satellites. So this rocket stage from the Cosmos, like 1933 mission, like a Russian mission, and just a fuel tank that they left is just floating through space as a piece of space junk. And I saw it like go over, like come up from the horizon, go overhead. and it was pretty dim. But then I actually saw the Hubble Space Telescope. Yeah, the main event. If you know about two artificial satellites, it's probably the International Space Station and the Hubble Space Telescope. So I saw that, and it got really bright. It got as bright as like two stars, and then it just vanished, right? And that was really cool because it fell behind Earth's shadow, which is just incredible. Because the reason it's bright is the same reason that the moon is bright, why all the planets are bright. It's just reflecting sunlight. So the Hubble Space Telescope was reflecting sunlight, and then it fell into Earth's shadow and like went away. And that was really cool. So I would say there's this app called Sky Guide. It costs $1. You can get it. There are also other apps that don't cost money. You should definitely try and see a satellite pass overhead. It is so cool, very rewarding, and yeah, that was great.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's that feeling of wonder that space invokes, and you can put that into your story. You can also subvert that feeling, because if something horrible happens in your story in space, then people are like, oh no, that's horrible. Like in such a nice place like space, how could that ever happen? But yeah. So that's what space does.
How important is space to Star Wars, Soph?
Oh,
Scale 1 to 10. 10 being most important.
Okay, when can you get a shower?
Yes. I would probably, well, just guessing. I don't know as much as you do, but
okay.
I would say, right? Is it like 8, 9, or 10?
I mean, it's called Star Wars.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
There you go. And there you have it. Certified by number
fresh.
1 Star Wars fan.
Yep.
Space is important.
Yep.
Next slide.
Yeah, but but space is great as a theme because it's the emptiness. It's also the hostility of the environment. There's just so many things. It's just like there are like 100 billion or something stars in the Milky Way alone, right?
That's more than 5.
That is more than 5, and that gives you a lot of star systems to work with, a lot of planets to work with. So it gives you an infinity of possibility for setting. And then there's also stuff that aliens or people build. So you have like starships, right? And that gives you more like freedom with setting. It's very freeing. Like if you're set on Earth, you have to set it either in a city or a suburb or a rural area. Or right, like you don't have as many options. But in space, you have a lot more options. You can have a planet, you can have Eucomenopolis, you can have you can have space stations, the works, right? So that's one key thing about space. And yeah, the second thing is the hostility of the environment, which is great. A lot of like depictions of the galaxy with aliens and stuff in it. It's always supposed to be really Darwinian, like really brutal, just like the dominant alien species will always just absolutely destroy the weaker alien species. Like if you think of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or like Star Wars too.
Yeah, that's like, my second favorite book.
Yeah, like the universe, like there tends not to be much diplomacy, It tends to be kill or be killed in a lot of spacefaring science fiction books, which is really interesting. Because it reflects just the hostility of the environment alone, It's a vacuum. It like kills you after 1 minute. But then you throw, hostile alien races into the mix, and then it is even more dangerous. And that's fun to do. But then those are some major themes with space.
Also a really good plot device, like a lot of the Star Wars movies just uses space as just like a driving force in the plot.
Yeah.
In a lot of areas, so.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that.
It's fine.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay.
I've probably said this before on stream, but when we did the very first episode, I got cold like 3 times. And I think I was also recording through my phone. My audio was going through my phone. So I got 3 calls. Like 2 people walked into my room, and my dog decided to like have a seizure because there was wind outside.
Oh my
So
gosh.
Oh.
it's you are absolutely okay.
Yeah.
The show goes on.
Yeah, exactly. That's live television. You know?
Yeah. So there's incredibly involved sciences, right? There's like astrophysics,
Yep.
and there's quantum mechanics, and there's like general relativity, and all these incredibly involved sciences and like careers within those sciences.
Yeah.
And you need to be
Aeronautics,
like
yeah.
incredibly intelligent to comprehend them. Next slide.
Sure thing.
Politics is not one of those things. You, as research has shown, you do not need to be incredibly intelligent to go into politics.
Yep.
But politics is a common theme of sci-fi.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, so
Oh, I did the good mythical
Yep.
morning.
I know. Well, yeah, I mean, of course, they're not the only people that can say, let's talk about that. But whenever I hear someone say, let's talk about that, I automatically think good mythical morning. But I'm like, no, other people say, let's talk about that. Like you say, hey guys, yeah, don't mind me coming home at 2 a.m. I was just out doing non-suspicious things. And then the response might be, let's talk about that. Right? There are a lot of situations where someone might say, let's talk about that. But let's talk about that. So, politics.
Yeah, so you go ahead.
Yeah,
you lead us
politics are involved in my book because it starts off with 3 lunar states that are part of the United States of America. And, of course, they are not of America because they are of the moon. So, they are like, yeah. So, early in the story, they say to America, I'm going to head out. They say, we don't want to be part of America anymore. We are too culturally distinct, right? Like, we live on the moon, you live on Earth. Like, the gravity, a lot of people born on the moon can't even return to Earth because it would just break all their bones. So, yeah, we're done. We're severing this connection, right? So that's what's decided. But before that's decided, America has policies like trying to get people to move to the moon so that there are more, American-born people living on the American states on the moon, so that if an independence vote like comes up, independence will not be chosen just because there will be more like Earth native Americans on the moon, right? And so that's a major political aspect there. Then also there's like there's like this terrorist organization, right? And terrorism is, I think, if you go to Merriam-Webster or whatever, it's like the use of terror to spread a political ideology, right? So they're using like terrorism to get politics to work in their favor. So that's another political aspect, but yeah, those are probably the 2 largest aspects in my book of politics. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I just love the the hope in this graph in front of us. How there is some overlapping area.
Yeah, exactly.
Between the 2 sides.
Yeah,
that's just really hopeful.
Yeah, realistically, those 2 call-outs, those 2 speech bubbles would be separated by 1,000,000 light years. And in sci-fi, perhaps literally. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, so we see really polarizing politics in both Star Wars, which I'm going to let Soph talk about in a second, but also in Dune. We've talked about Dune a lot. A lot of politics going on there, specifically with like land deals, but because it's on a planetary scale and like a galactic scale, it's like they're selling planets, So there's a lot of that, and politics becomes just bigger and bigger as humanity and civilization gets bigger, because it needs to encapsulate things like once we anytime we break into a new technology and there's some controversy about it, there always needs to be like a law made.
Yep.
Like we talked about genetic modification, and when that became like, when we started getting really into that, like there was a massive political debate about it, and laws had to be made, like global laws, and it's just politics like will pretty much always stick with a society no matter where it is, like going down the road. I mean, in history, I don't think the cavemen had much politics besides beat or be beaten.
Beat or be beat,
yeah. So Soph, do you want to talk about the politics of the like Empire versus the rebels and the controversy there?
Okay, that's like there's a lot of politics in Star Wars, but just to kind of sum it up, you have the Empire, which is obviously, an empire, and then you have the Rebellion, and then in like the sequels and the Disney movies, you have like the Resistance, which is kind of the same thing. And so basically you have these rebels trying to, like overthrow the current government in the galaxy. And that's how the movie opens up. Like the very first Star Wars movie, it opens up with they're on a rebel ship, and they have the Death Star plans and everything. And so so politics is just a huge thing in Star Wars. And then also you have the prequels, which I thought it was really interesting. They have like a galactic republic. And so that was always like a really cool idea to me as a kid. You just have like and they have the huge like galactic senate and everything. And so
that's a good point. That politics will eventually, because right now we all have like political wars, like not actual wars. Well, sometimes actual wars, but like in America, there's a lot of tension with politics. But eventually, once we get big enough, politics will like just break out of countries and then just go with entire planets. So that's a really interesting point that you brought up, that there's just a galactic law, you know. And obviously on each planet, like how closely they follow that law is like up to them. But it's interesting that politics got that big,
Yeah, it's also really
and then I was gonna say like, sorry,
go ahead.
So you have like the big republic or the empire and everything, but then you also have like specific planets have their own like government as well. They have like monarchies or their own democracies or something. And so it just gets really, really complex and really, really intricate. And so that's also another thing. Like it's just one day it's just going to get like so complex that, I mean, even now, like it's impossible to follow like the politics in the entire world. Like,
so, and it's also interesting, especially when you have like different alien races, different species. And the idea that different aliens are going to follow the same laws is just crazy. Because, you might have praying mantis planet, right? Where the dominant species is praying mantises. And their laws would condone murder because they are horrible bugs. We talked about that in the Science of Romance stream, how praying mantises kill their partners. Just because, I don't know, they're weird like that. But yeah, exactly. But if you had a basic law, right, even a basic law like murder is illegal, wouldn't necessarily work for every alien species, because some aliens will just, have murder as part of their society. And you have to be like, how do we deal with that? Is that okay? I don't know. And then, because they might...
Let's talk about that.
because they might come back at you like a race of like sentient trees or something, right? They might be like, oh, you should not be allowed to eat plants anymore, nor animals, right? So like not just vegans, like breatharians. Have you heard of those people? That think that they can survive on sunlight. Not a good idea. Would not recommend.
So they're dying out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Their
but
numbers are dwindling.
but yeah, but you might have a species of like trees, of whatever sentient plants that are like, hey, what you're doing, we consider that murder. And if they were to enforce that law on us, then we as humans would die. So it's interesting to have laws between different races of aliens because they just can't work for everyone. Just because anatomy is different. So it would be hard to enforce our laws on some aliens, and we would not be happy if other aliens tried to enforce their laws on us. So when you consider politics and galactic republic, I find that really interesting. Just how legislation would even work. Yeah.
Oh my God, Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz was so ahead of its time with
Yeah.
the talking trees.
Oh yeah, exactly. Or like Groot. Yeah. But yeah.
So yeah, it's a big topic.
Yeah.
Politics.
Yeah.
And it's gotten very heated as of late. I would say in Star Wars and Dune and A Truly Dead Rock.
Yeah.
It's even more heated.
Yeah.
So looking at those media and those stories, that they're not too hopeful for the future of politics.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Well, I think the best thing to remember is that it could be worse. Like, like sometimes, have you ever like heard someone say like, "This is the most divided time in American history"? When someone says that, I'm like, what about the
Do you
Civil
remember
War?
the Civil War?
Exactly. I'm like, are you actually saying that this right now is the most divided time in American history? Like I've heard people say that, and I'm like, what? What about the Civil War? So that's at least right. That's a thing. At least we're not going to Civil War, so that's good.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
That's
we
all
might
for
be
me.
like, they might be saying that because of like numbers, but again, that's
Uh-huh.
just population and that's just percentage.
Yeah.
But back in the Civil War, it was like better red than dead,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
or better dead
better
than
dead
red.
than red.
Reference to the red coats.
Yeah. Well, actually, it might be an interesting thing. You could make the argument that objectively things might be more divided now, and that America is just more cohesive, so that an equal amount of division as during the Civil War as right now wouldn't spark a civil war. That could be an argument. But, it's difficult to say that this is the most divided time in American history when America literally was divided at one point in American history. But you know what I mean? Like, when America was a younger country around the time of the Civil War, it wasn't strong enough to stay together under the strain of, the slavery versus anti-slavery political debate. But maybe now there are some political debates that would have divided America in the past, but America's just stronger now, so it's able to stay together as a superpower. But,
Yeah. We let people hash it out on
neither
Tumblr
here
and
nor
Facebook.
there. Yeah, exactly. Anyways, so that's politics.
Yeah.
Clarke's third law. Clarke's third law. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. From isquotes.com. Thank you, isquotes.com. No, I just got a picture and it was from isquotes.com. So, but yeah, that's Clarke's third law, right? And so it's used as a theme sometimes. And this kind of fits under the technology slide a bit, like what I was saying earlier. But sometimes when in sci-fi stories, an author might, just have like anti-gravity or artificial gravity, not the spinning kind. They might just, have floor artificial gravity, and like on Star Trek or something, or actually Star Wars too. But sometimes when they do that, they're like, oh, yep, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, so you can't criticize my unrealistic technology. But yeah, I like Clarke's third law, anyways. Yeah, it's an interesting, like, it's used in, Thor. Like, that's a major plot point. Oh my gosh, my dog is barking. Apologies. I can't mute myself without muting everyone else too, so you're along for the ride. Yeah. But what do you think about this?
Yeah. So this is just going into the obviously advancements of technology, and this is also how dependent we like become on technology. But what I was thinking was that I told you guys this before the stream, like a couple days ago, but I was reminded of the quote, and I'm gonna find it. If you showed a caveman our day, think it was magic, and if you showed a modern man magic, he would think it's technology.
Yeah.
I don't know who originally said that. I got that from Outlast, which is a video game. But I think it's pretty.
That's a great
interesting because it speaks to what our perception of like belief is. Because now that we've been shown the wonders of technology, we're like less likely to believe in magic.
Yeah. Also, it's I like that quote objectively because it's a literary device. I forgot what it's called. My English teacher talked about it, but I forgot the actual name of it. But it's that thing where you say you show them technology, they'll call it magic. You show us magic, we'll call it technology. It's like in Kennedy's speech, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Like that crisscross pattern.
Yeah,
I like that.
Let's try and figure it out. Keep going.
Yeah, I like when something uses that. But of course, if I can't remember basic words like steaks, it's doubtful I'll remember that word right now. So, yeah. But it is a literary device, so you can use that. But yeah, Clarke's Third Law. Arthur C. Clarke, brilliant science fiction author. He has stories like, let's see, like Rendezvous with Rama, right? I think that was Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because I read that. I read Rendezvous with Rama. Love that book. Yeah. Let's see.
So where do you guys think the Force kind of plays into all of this? Because I mean they kind of explain
midichlorian.
Yeah,
the midichlorian.
Yeah, well,
but,
yeah, that is interesting because we do call the Force like magic. It really just seems like magic. But then in the prequels, they're like, oh, your midichlorian levels are high. But everyone kind of agrees that, like, people aren't very fond of that midichlorians explanation. But yeah, that would be an example. The midichlorians, like, they're just tiny microbes that exist in all of us, but if you have them in a certain level, you're able to use the Force. That would be a technology. I mean, obviously not technology. That's more a biology, but it's indistinguishable to us from magic. But yeah. So that is an interesting.
So, yeah, but I think that also speaks, like, the Force thing kind of speaks to how we, like, perceive stuff like that, because, like, think of just that entire, like, taking a step back, thinking about that midichlorian debate in the first place, like, our reaction to the Force and the, like, explanation they kind of half gave us.
Yeah.
Just how we all have, like, dissent about that, or how we have disputes about that, shows that we're trying to, like, analyze it and we're trying to rationalize it, you know?
That's
a lot of people are dissatisfied when like an author or like a writer goes and says, oh, it's unexplainable, or it's inexplainable, whichever one. Or it's like, it was indescribable, as HP.
Indescribable geometries. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people want an explanation.
Yeah.
And it used to be that people were satisfied without one.
Yeah.
You know,
I
how
feel like
books
for the
would
Force,
end without actual endings and all. But that's a good point about the Force, so I'm glad you brought it up. But I found what the literary device was.
Oh, what it's called?
It's called chiasmus or
Ah, there we go.
chiasmus.
Yeah, that
chiasmus,
sounds
I
like
think.
something my English teacher said, chiasmus. So that's the literary device. Pull that one on anybody that thinks that they're better at literary devices than you. You can just be like chiasmus, and they'll be like, "Oh wow, you have thwarted me." Uh, that's fun to do. If you just have
Maybe.
random
go ahead.
fact, if you have one random, really in-depth fact about any subject, then whenever you encounter an expert in that subject, then you can just say that fact, and they'll be like, respect. So that's a fun tip. But yeah, but with the Force, right? I feel like I preferred no explanation. So, just having seen 4, 5, and 6, I'm like, okay, yeah, they have the Force. That's a thing. It's the. I think Obi-Wan in the first one described it like it's a field that, like, surrounds us all. I, like, very vague. I preferred that to the midi-chlorians explanation. I preferred the vaguer explanation to the, kind of dumb, but more in-depth explanation.
Yeah, what I wanted to say was chiasmus kind of sounds like a name that white parents give their kid because they're trying to sound different.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Or like, just take a normal
little
name.
chiasmus.
Yeah, or like take a normal name like, not to alienate anyone. So let's just use my name. A normal name like Max, and then just spell it with 2 X's or with like 2 X's, yeah. Or like with
No,
with
they
a
spell
A.
it Macks.
Ooh, Macks or Macs, just Max. That would not be good. Maks, that's probably the worst one.
Oh, that's terrible.
Maks. Yeah. Although I am an advocate for removing X from the English lexicon. I think it's an unnecessary letter, but
Maccs.
yeah, I know. It's not the best, but you see,
Yeah.
C, Q, and X are all unnecessary. I mean, just watch the grade A under A video. But
I haven't watched him in such a long time.
Yeah, but they're just unnecessary letters, right? Because C, you can replace it with a K or an S in every situation. A Q you can replace with a K, and X you can replace, sadly, with KS. It doesn't look good, but for efficiency's sake, think of the efficiency. It's worth it, in my opinion, for the efficiency.
K is the universal letter, apparently.
What? What does that mean?
I mean, like, you're saying that, C can just be replaced by K, and K and X can be just replaced by K, and Q can be replaced by K.
Well, that's just because the K sound has, like, 30 letters.
Exactly.
Hyperbole, but yeah.
But yeah.
You've got K, you've got CK, you've got Q on its own, you've got X, the first part of X. I mean, that's it, but that's quite a bit more. 4. Yeah. That's not a lot, but for what we're talking about, that is quite a bit.
Yeah, but Clarke's third law, which employs a C and a K.
Yep.
I think it's an important thing to think about, especially because it's react to the advancements around them. And it's not like, boom, advancements were made, like in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
But it's like always a slow like roll of improvements and stuff like that.
Yeah, always looking back in retrospect, you realize, wow, like that, we've come a long way with technology, but you never wake up one day and be like, whoa, this is crazy. Like even, the new iPhone releases and you're like, okay, like not even that, because that's pretty momentous, every year, that's once a year. You don't even wake up on the day that the new iPhone's released being like, wow, we are in the future. Same goes, Android, any of the other companies, Google Pixel, but yeah, like you never wake up one day, see a new like electronic devices out, and be like, oh my gosh, this is it, this particular day, this is when things became the future, because the future is always in the future. It is never, you never reach the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
So if you got anything on Clarke's third law?
I mean, no, that was pretty in depth.
What's Clarke's
Cool.
fourth law?
Clarke's fourth law, did he say?
His first two laws.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, he only had 3. Wow. Man of few laws.
Man of Newton only had 3 laws, right? So, I mean, he had more, but 3 laws of
Clarke's
motion.
3 laws. First one. When a distinguished but elderly scientist states that something is possible, he's almost certainly right. When he states that something is impossible, he is very probably wrong.
Yep. Yeah, I love that one. That's a good one.
His second law. The only way of discovering limits possible is to venture a little way past them into the impossible.
Wow.
And then we have the third one up there.
Yep.
His fourth law.
Yeah, there's a fourth one.
Greedo shot first.
Oh, no, I thought the fourth law is for, like, any expert, there's an equal and opposite expert, like something like that.
Yeah.
That even experts will have conflicting facts. So there can be, you know, a marine biology expert that's like, dolphins, like, blah, 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 right? And then the other marine biology expert will be like, no, I actually think dolphins, blah, blah, blah. And so you have conflicting experts. But
oh, did you know Larry Niven?
Sorry, you cut out. What is he?
Larry Niven had laws.
Oh, he had laws, really?
Like, he established laws.
Huh. 200-year-olds should not date 18-year-olds?
Here, I'm gonna read them out.
Is
right
that
now.
one of them?
So, his first law.
Yeah.
Never fire a laser at a mirror.
That's a good one.
Good one. Giving up freedom for security is beginning to look naive.
Huh. That's just Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, I think that is Benjamin Franklin.
Well, it's a alt version of Benjamin Franklin. It's those who would sacrifice their basic liberties for a little temporary security will, like, get none and lose both. Yeah.
It is easier to destroy than to create.
Anyone
Ethics,
that's played Minecraft
yeah.
with a destructive 6-year-old nephew knows that.
Yeah. Ethics change with technology.
That is true.
And the only universal message science, there exist minds that think as well as you do, but differently.
Huh. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. That's like the experts thing I was saying. Nice.
But yeah, so lots of laws being
Lots
made.
of laws. Yeah.
But let's hop over to the
Sure.
next one.
Economics.
Econ Musk.
This makes Econ Musk. Stonks.
Stonks.
We should have put stonks in there.
Yeah, why the hell did we put
I don't
stonks?
know.
I'm grabbing
All right.
stonks.
It
real
looks
quick.
a lot like stonks, the picture already, but yeah, economics. I mean, there are a lot of historical, like, lenses where people just say, you know, history's just based on economy. Every war, every, you know, president, it's just based on economics. That's one theory of history, and you know, it has some merit because economics is very important. It determines a lot of things in societies. And
I threw it in.
yeah. Oh, okay. Let me. Oh boy, I am feeling sick. Do you want to do some talking?
Sure. Yeah. No. I should be talking.
Yeah. Sorry,
you're
I
sick.
probably don't.
Yeah.
help.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
So, economics.
Yes.
Economics are like you were saying. It obviously influences politics.
Yep.
That's a big theme that we see in both my works, Dune, and a lot of other works.
Yeah.
It's economics change with industry because when different industries pop up as a result of technology improving, it can either like boost or maybe if some crisis happens, like say like the BP oil spill, the
Yeah.
economy like suffers. Also, because of other conflicts, the economy can suffer, or it can like boom. Like, for example, as we've seen throughout history, whenever there's war, the economy gets better.
Yeah.
You know, Soph is having internet issues.
okay.
She just messaged me, so she'll be fixing that.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
economics is one of the it's one of the more overlooked things, I would say, in science fiction, because it takes another step
that's
to be
true.
like, I'm going to employ this principle, and I'm going to employ this principle into my science fiction world, but then you don't think about how that would like affect the economy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
it's just another level of like thought.
Yeah, definitely. But that, America, right? If you think of the two like American like decades of like prosperity, the Roaring '20s and the '50s, and they both came after a world war and us profiting off of selling tanks to Europeans.
Yeah. So that's actually one of the reasons why I liked A Truly Dead Rock so much, is because it had a lot of those layers of thinking.
Yeah.
Because the main character, Hudson, is placed into like the realistic lunar colony, and it's his reaction to like, for instance, when he sees the temperature change during that drill that they had on the lunar base, he had like realistic human reactions to that, but that thing that was occurring, that event, was a realistic scientific thing that would happen. So that dynamic from being, like this scientific thing would happen, this principle would be employed in this kind of society, being mirrored by, this is how humans would react, or like realistically respond to that, forms like, that's just great storytelling. That also applies to economics, because if like there's an interplanetary war, an intergalactic war, like the economy should be like booming, you know? But if there's like some other thing, like there's a shortage of minerals or something, then you would expect that like the economy would suffer, especially in that regard.
Yeah, well, it definitely depends though, because like if you have a war, right? You can either have your like galactic, you can have your like galactic or interstellar nation, right? Your sci-fi society, right? It can either end up as America, being prosperous after a war because they made money off of it, or you could have a like post World War II Germany where it was just and post World War I Germany where everything was just kind of not good. And because when it depends, because we haven't really seen war on American turf. Like, I mean, there was like the Pearl Harbor attack on Hawaii, and that's like huge to this day. But that's one of very few, other than in earlier American history when we were fighting the British. But America is usually safe from the brunt of the warfare, right? But Europe, Germany, France, they are constantly in warfare. I mean, France needed war reparations from Germany after the First World War just to rebuild everything that the Germans destroyed. So, if you are looking at the economics of a post-war, like, galactic stage, right, you can have some nations that are prosperous and America-like, and you can have some that are not doing so well because the fighting was on their turf. So, yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So economics is one of those things where it's influenced by other factors that go on, So a healthy amount of economical knowledge can actually be really beneficial to a story.
Yeah, definitely.
And it helps build the realism of the world when you have like the economy being affected by events. That's immersive, and that makes your story much more believable.
Yeah, I'm excited to see economy in your story because you've got a fun
Oh
like
yeah.
like
I have to
all
do a
the
lot of work
yeah like
in
the
that regard.
advertisements after they got off the monorail thing. That was fun.
Oh,
I love
thank you.
those.
Yeah. There's a lot of advertisements
Yeah.
around my thing in here. My cord is just wrapped up in my headphones.
Oh gosh.
Oh, I also
Yeah.
have a very quick story.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's hear it.
All right. So, quick story about my headphones. The TSA broke my headphones. They I have a massive computer,
Uh-huh.
like my laptop. Like you saw my laptop, Max.
Yeah.
And basically whenever I try and take that, like obviously, but they
Uh-huh.
always think it's like a bomb,
Yeah, so they always
basically,
check
because
it.
it's so like big
Yeah.
and it's very and all that. It's like a Dell from
Yeah.
2012 or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's terrible. But
Yeah.
they always think it's a bomb. The first time I brought it through, like when I was going down to Florida,
Uh-huh.
they like picked it up, looked at it, and then like just like placed it back. And how I know is they like left a note saying
Oh yeah.
there was something of suspicion in your luggage.
Oh my
So we
gosh.
checked it out, and um, it was like, and then coming back, it was. I get another note, right? And it was like, there was something of suspicion. And I was like, yeah, I know. And I looked through, and my headphones, the left side of my headphone, just like smashed. Basically,
Oh my
like
gosh.
the thing was popped out of its thing, and wires were like coming out.
Yeah.
So I can't really use like the left side of my headphone
That sucks.
because I don't know what the hell they were doing. They're like, hey, I think this kid has a bomb in his bag
Yeah.
because that's what all the kids are doing these days. And they open my bag, look at my computer. They're like, oh, that's cool, and then just break
Yeah,
my
exactly.
headphones,
I
and
know.
throw it in.
It's ridiculous. For some reason, right? The government just has the right to like destroy property and have no repercussions. Like they don't get sued for it. Like you think of like SWAT teams or something when there's a fake call for like a SWAT team, they'll just completely trash someone's house, right? And be like, "Ha, sucks to suck. You got to pay for it."
Yeah.
I don't know why that's allowed. That's like one big thing. Yeah, if we're living in a dystopia, that's one major aspect that I don't like. The fact that the government can just wreck your stuff and make you pay for it, which is very odd. Like
Yeah.
like I can't believe they don't get class action lawsuit, but you can't sue the government. What are they going to do? Give you a lawyer? So it's just like, yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to fight the government with a lawsuit, but yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I said, Sophia's just having some internet issues. She's saying she's super sorry.
Oh, it's
She's gonna try and join us when she can. So
okay.
let's hope that she can rejoin us. But
Yeah, sure.
let's go over to the next slide.
Okay. So we have common tropes. Okay.
Tropes.
So I'm kind of realizing that a lot of these categories are kind of the same. We were talking earlier about how sometimes a theme can get tired, and that's more of a trope thing. So tropes are kind of like cliches. So there are things that are overused in a story, and every story has tropes. I mean, they're unavoidable because it's pretty much everything has been used before. That's just because there have been a lot of stories that have been told over the course of human history. But you want to make sure that you avoid having a very common cliche in your story. You want to make sure that your story offers something new, interesting. It's okay if you have a few cliches, a few tropes, but you want to offer something new to the table, right? Also, like, you can turn a trope on its head. That's always a fun thing to do. But, like, if your story is riddled with lines like, you got to take a look at this, and like
I have a bad feeling about this.
and I have a bad feeling about this.
This is Star Wars.
Yeah, that's good. That's funny though because it's an inside joke. But yeah, if your story is riddled like unironically with, you got to come take a look at this, and I have a bad feeling about this. then you might want to work on revising it a bit and get a few more interesting, a few more unique lines. Just because people get bored of tropes is the reality of it. So yeah. All right. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the next slide. F.T.L. travel. So
Yeah. So I think I'm guilty of this one because the planet that the story takes place on is a generous amount of light years away from Earth. So I kind of need to use FTL travel, but what I'm gonna try and do is provide like a very some sort of explanation for how like FTL travel works, basically.
How many times faster than light is your FTL capable of? Because I know your planet's 100 light years away. So how long is travel time between Earth and that planet of 100 light years?
Did I say it was 100 light years?
I thought so, but I mean, you might have changed it since you told me that distance.
I have no concept of distance when light years are involved, so I wrote down because we just did all that math for it.
Yeah. Well, that was more
this number is subject to change. Yeah, okay. I wrote down 4,000 light years.
4,000?
That might be a little
or wait, 400,000?
400,000.
Wow, okay. I mean, wait, 400. Ooh, okay, yeah. That might have to change. 400,000. Our galaxy's only 100,000 wide. So it's just dipping around in the middle of space in intergalactic void. But yeah. But let's say 40,000.
So that's going to change.
But how much faster than light do you think you're going to have?
I'm going to go random number generator.
Yeah. Well, what's your idea? I mean, and you can change it, obviously. You're not really beholden to anyone here, but
32. I got 32. 32 times the speed of light.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. That would still mean like if your
that's a multiple of 2 there.
Yeah.
I mean that's like a factor. An exponent, a power of 2. Thank you.
Exponent. Yeah. But yeah, if your planet's 100 light years away, right, then that would take like 3 years to get to. So that's an interesting speed. But yeah, so faster than light travel, as I said before in the technology slide, sometimes it's just used because an author's like, look, it's just inconvenient to the story. And that's all right. You know, like you don't need to tell a 100% accurate science fiction story. I like to, but I eventually want to have FTL travel in the story. Like maybe not. I'm not 100% sure, but I know there will be time travel and stuff. So you need to do it like eventually just because it speeds things up. Also, as you said before, like how do we know it's impossible? We haven't tested. Sorry. I'm not doing well. I'm not vibing. But we haven't tested every possible case, right? And just because our laws of relativity, Einstein's relativity excludes faster than light travel. If we find, say, a grand unified theory by mixing it with quantum mechanics, we may find that faster than light travel is possible in some very specific circumstance. Like, I mean, if you think about it, Newton's laws of motion, they were mostly right, but then we found out that if you're either moving very fast or near a lot of mass, then those two situations will result in these laws being wrong. So we might have a similar thing with relativity eventually. But FTL travel, right? If you're going to use it, I would say the number one thing is to just define a speed. Pick a speed that you want your faster than light drives to be capable of moving at. Sorry. And of course, you can have different speeds, right? Like if you have, like a sports car versus, an old like 1979 pickup truck, there are going to be different speeds there. But you should have speeds that are roughly similar, right? And you can have, hot rods. I think in the show The Expanse, they don't have F.T.L travel, but they definitely have some ships that can move faster than others because they're specifically meant for racing, right? So that's something you can talk about. That's a fun thing to talk about. Like, say your characters are like traveling to a different planet, and they're like, "How long is it going to take?" And they're like, "Oh, it's going to take like a few weeks." And they're like, "What? A few weeks? That's ridiculous. How is it going to take that long?" And they're like, "Yeah, we have an old model from the year 2829. Like, oh, sorry, it's a really old model." And they're like, "Seriously? That's like 30 years old. 30 years old.
Yeah.
Like, we have much better drives now." So you can have some of that fun, like, parallelism to, modern technology, like human cars. And so that's a fun thing. And you just want to make sure that any given drive, you define a speed. You don't want to have, like, say, the, like, model, like, Z57, right? If you have, like, ships that run on model Z57 drives, right, and one day it's moving at 33 times the speed of light, and the next day it's moving at 59 times the speed of light, then your readers are going to be like, okay, this is ridiculous. It's just moving at whatever speed is necessary for the characters to succeed, like to get away from the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
So you want to have carefully defined rules. That's all. Because science fiction is like considered part of like the larger fantasy genre, but it's also distinct in its ways, right? So if you are involving faster than light travel, right, then you're not writing a 100% like hard science story, at least like according to known physics. Your story's deviating a little from what we consider possible, right? And that's all right.
Yeah.
But like any fantasy story, like The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, you need to have rules in place, or in Harry Potter, right? You need to have magic systems or whatever that have rules in a fantasy story so that your fantasy story is convincing. So the same thing applies to the less scientific aspects of your science fiction novels. You need to have defined rules. Even if they aren't scientific rules, they must be like self-consistent, logical rules. So yeah. So that's my rant, I guess. My sick rant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Max is probably gonna do F.T.L better than me in his works.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, but it's definitely one of the hardest things to like calculate. You know, it's like you can, or like explain, I should say, because like I just pulled up a random number, and I think that 32 times the speed of light has to probably change.
Yeah, I might have to
because
depends again on how
probably
far
needs to
your
be
planets
faster.
apart are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what's the
So,
standard distance
all of
from
that-
one planet to another? You just gotta think about that. Like, what's your standard distance? Like, if you think of what's your equivalent to like two neighboring towns in distance? What's your equivalent to like New York City and Washington D.C. in difference? Like, you kind of have to think about that.
Okay.
And so so you think of like how far apart are the major cities of this society, right? And then you think of how far apart are our major cities. How long does it take to travel between our major cities? And so like New York, Los Angeles, 6-hour plane ride. So obviously you can't quite have that. So you can tweak it. You can say that the farthest 2 points in your nation, like the farthest 2 cities, might take a month of travel, a few months of travel to get between. And if you think about it, the British Empire was running just fine for a while with that kind of travel time. I mean, of course, they're not much of an empire anymore, but that wasn't like solely because of the travel time. Like empires can stay cohesive even when it takes 3 months to get between places in that empire. So so that's all just food for thought.
Yeah, but thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of the harder things to calculate.
Yeah.
But it definitely should. If you're writing and you can't really come up with a cohesive explanation, don't let it like discourage you from writing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because chances are you'll just think of an idea like later on.
Yeah.
You know, but just keep moving forward with your idea and your topic and the rest of your story.
Yeah. Definitely.
And whenever you need FTL, just be like, and they went 10 billion times the speed of light. You know,
Yeah.
like have fun with it when you're like drafting.
Yeah.
And then maybe you'll think of something later on.
Yeah. And you
Just
don't
my
necessarily you don't need to have an explanation, right? But even if you don't have an explanation, just keep the logic consistent. That's really all you need to keep
Yeah.
the readers like engaged, you know?
Yeah. But yeah.
All right.
So let's go over to our next one.
Sure thing. Humanoid aliens. So this is the thing, right? In a lot of movies, aliens are portrayed as humanoid. They are like pretty much people, except, you know, they're blue and have longer ears and are maybe taller, right? That's probably not how aliens are going to end up being if we ever encounter aliens. I mean, if you've ever played Spore, the game Spore, there are a lot of
Yeah.
different ways and some very cursed ways that you can evolve a species, right? And if you think that your aliens are just magically going to be exactly like humans, or pretty much like humans, then you need a good explanation, a good reason why they are very similar to humans. Yeah.
But yeah. So I have aliens in my story, and I try and tackle why they are all humanoid.
Yeah.
I think I have a decent explanation for it. That might not be explored until maybe like the second book.
Yeah.
But
I've heard
I definitely-
you have a good explanation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's definitely something that should be explored. You
Yeah.
know, like why does everything look humanoid? You know,
Yeah.
and like I've seen some explanations which like, oh, the human model is like just the most efficient model, and it's not.
Yeah, it's
That's
sucky.
wrong.
Yeah.
It's not.
The fact that
If
we
I had
stand
an extra
upright.
arm, like I would
Yeah.
be like a millionaire by now.
Exactly. Yeah, but the fact that humans stand upright, for instance, has caused us to have a ton of back problems. Like, the reason people have back problems is because we're
Yeah.
not supposed to stand up like this. Also, like, the way our ankles work, like the bones, like the metatarsal bones, in most animals, that is, like, their knee. So our entire foot, right, on most other mammals, I should say, that is like their entire like leg up to their knee, which is fascinating. But yeah, definitely. Like in my stories, for instance, I'm gonna have aliens eventually, and they're not gonna be humanoid, but they're going to be like Terranoid. I don't know if that's a thing. Like they're gonna be like other life on Earth, right? And there's a pretty
Yeah.
wide, array of life on Earth, but so they're slightly more different than humans. And my explanation is that
Dolphin people.
exactly.
You're making dolphin people.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know, probably not. But let's see what. Oh yeah, basically, my explanation is going to be that they all have a common ancestor. So it's going to be that there's ancient microbes on like asteroids, like clinging to asteroids as they fly through space. Those asteroids crashed into Earth, then they crashed into another planet and another planet. So the original microbes are the same, but then they evolved differently. So that's why they still would have DNA and a roughly like Earth-like shape, but they are very different from anything you would actually see on Earth. It's like random animal generator, right? So that's the thing. That's kind of how I'm doing it. But yeah, with humanoid aliens, you can explain the same thing because eventually, if you wait enough time, humans will become the aliens, right? I think you were saying, did that happen in Dune to a certain degree? Like with the one race?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the society's branched out so much,
Exactly.
they basically became different species kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So one of Darwin's principles of evolution is the idea of isolation, separation of a species. And one way he says that one species can become two species is if they are separated by a physical barrier and they no longer interact with each other. That is what causes differentiation of species. So, if you have a group of humans living 8,000 light years away, and say you don't have FTL, and it actually would take 8,000 years to get between point A and point B, that group of people will eventually become distinct from our humans. And they would still look humanoid, at least for a while, depending on how long you let evolution play out, but they would still look humanoid, and that would be a just explanation for why you have humanoid aliens. They descended from humans. Like that's a good explanation. So if you're gonna do the humanoid aliens trope, then you have to have an explanation. That's pretty much how all these tropes work. Like they're used frequently and they're often unexplained and illogical. But as long as you just have a logical explanation, then you're good. Like it's really that simple, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's interesting because it can come off as lazy writing. Because like these are just explanations that I'm spitballing off the top of my head right here, right?
Yeah.
And if I can come up with this like right here, right now, and you can't, and you had like so much time to like write your book or movie, then it kind of says to the audience like, oh, okay, they don't really care about what they're making. So you got to make sure that you have a good explanation. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. So aliens are cool. Aliens are fun. They are like obviously I'm writing a book about them.
Yep.
But they're a topic that has almost like aliens in itself has kind of become a trope, you know?
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's starting to become less now, but I feel like back in the day, almost every single sci-fi book was about or involved alien.
Yeah, and humanoid aliens. Yeah, stories have gotten better when it comes to tropes because in the past, when there weren't as many sci-fi stories, you can't have a trope if there just haven't been enough stories for it to exist, because a trope is something that's overused, and if you don't have enough stories in a genre, then nothing is overused. But yeah, a lot of those, like if you look at old sci-fi is really just space-themed westerns. Have you ever heard people say that?
Oh,
yeah.
I've not heard that before.
Yeah, it's a funny line.
Accurate.
I like that line. They're just space-themed westerns. That's really all old sci-fi is. They're like goofy and wacky and like ray guns, standoffs like that. But but so we've come a long way when it comes to sci-fi stories from those old pulp sci-fi in magazines it used to be. So so just make sure that your tropes have logical backings. That's the takeaway as we go through all of these. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next slide. Evil AI. So evil AI.
So we got GLaDOS right here.
Yeah, exactly.
Love GLaDOS, man.
Yeah.
Love Portal.
Yeah, I love that. I love Portal.
Oh, and speaking of portals, we got from Daikaiju Productions.
Nice. Oh, you could use portals.
He says,
Daikaiju Productions says, you could use portals almost like how highways are used in real life. That is true. Yeah, you could set up a whole... This is an interesting one. If you had portals, right, and you wanted to have an intergalactic empire, you could just have a whole planet filled with portals, right? And so when you want to go to a different planet, it's like Atlanta. It's like Atlanta, Georgia. The Atlanta, Georgia of planets, right? You just walk through one portal, and now you are on the planet that should be named Atlanta, Georgia. And you walk around to another point on that planet, you find another portal, and you get to your destination. But yeah, portals, you definitely could create Atlanta, Georgia for portals. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah, it's fun to make fun of Atlanta, Georgia. Living so close to it, I'm like, ha, Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, so evil AI. Evil AI is a
So-
trope. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, basically,
You want to go? You sound like stuffed up, you know.
oh, I was just gonna
If
say.
you want me to,
I was just
go
gonna
ahead.
say one thing. Then you can go.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, evil AI. It's a common fear response in humans. It's the fear response of what if we create something that is more powerful than we are and it kills us all. Like that's it's the threat from within. You know, a lot of sci-fi stories have antagonists. The antagonists are either aliens or evil AI. If you're looking at very stereotypical sci-fi stories. And the aliens cover threat from without. And so this is the basic fear response of, us versus them, of the old tribal instincts of like people from the other tribe are going to try and kill us. But then evil AI offer your threat from within, which are members of my tribe may turn on me and kill me. So it invokes one of these very basic fear responses in people, having evil AI in a story. But again, you don't want to make it a trope, so we'll talk about that. So yeah, what do you want to say?
Yeah. So AI is one of the, like I said before, anytime we break into a new technology, there's politics that come out of it. Well, there's also like fear out of it, Max was saying. So the AIs we have now are like the most advanced we've ever had. Like we have Alexa and like Siri and like Google's just named Google
It's
Home.
probably just named Google. Yeah, I mean you say hey Google.
Way to go, Google.
Ooh. Here's a fun thing. Here's a fun thing to do to our viewers at home. Hey Siri, Alexa, hey Google. Now everyone has either clicked off the video or they don't have a smart home device. Yeah.
But so it's AIs. We talked about the technological singularity before, and we've talked about it a lot. It's the point at which technology can like replicate itself and improve itself at like a rate faster than humans can.
Yeah.
So that would obviously lead to like almost sentient AIs. You know that, and then there's the issue, and this is going into like Detroit Become Human. That game is all about robo rights. It's like how, like if robots can like display emotion, like think at a level beyond ours. What rights should they get? Like they can't feel pain. But if they can, like the way that we say that humans are the most intelligent species is one of those things is because we can process complex emotions, and we use that like quote unquote process complex emotions as kind of a scale for intelligence sometimes. So if these AI, these like synthetic beings can do that, like, should they be given all the rights that humans have? More rights than we have? Smart. Like, I bet some people would be for that. You know, they're like, well, they're smarter than us, so why shouldn't they be held at a higher like level? Why shouldn't they be given more creed? But
exactly.
It's also interesting because it would be like the first, like again, quote unquote, species that has ever been like created outside of evolution. You know? Because it would be weird, because we as a species would be creating this other species that is more powerful than us. So the fear goes, will they overtake us?
It's a lot. Definitely. As you're talking about robot rights, it's very similar to the idea of having laws that legislate all alien affairs, right? It just doesn't work between different species. And I think a lot of laws for humans just would not work with AIs, you know. Also, we have the chat. We have Jan McCarthy 1975 who says, evil eye.
Evil eye. That's a reference to a game that Mike and I play. We play Rainbow Six.
Cool.
To the viewers at home, Michael is absolutely garbage at this game. He has no idea how to play, and whenever he plays Maestro, we lose.
Maybe
So
you
take
should
that one to
challenge
heart.
him on his channel, Jam Has Big, on
Yeah.
Twitch. Yeah.
Yeah, go check out his Twitch if you want to see
yeah.
him lose a lot.
Yeah. He's been on stream before. Anyways, yeah. So wow, I am like deteriorating, but
yeah, if you want me to like talk and you need to like go and take a minute, we get it, bro.
I'm good. I just sound bad. That's the thing. I have a lot of.
Can take it.
I have mental strength. I have a lot of willpower.
You're gonna be Stephen Hawking by the end of this.
Yeah,
You're just
exactly.
gonna need to do all text to speech.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyways, so evil AI, and it's so the point that it becomes a trope, right? If you just have, by and large, any AI like Skynet, you just have humans make AI. Humans give AI too much access to our systems. AI takes over and kills everyone. Like that's kind of boring, basically, as with all these tropes. That becomes boring if people have to read that over and over again. So you want to add some nuance. For instance, there might be a bad AI that's trying to kill everyone.
Sophia says that she has her internet back up and running.
Nice.
So let's add her to the call. Oh,
great. Hello. Welcome back.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, glad you could rejoin.
Hi. I am so sorry.
No,
oh my god. I'm just on a roll today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, it's all good.
Yeah, it's but yeah, as I was saying.
Yeah, I just have really.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, we got it. Yeah, I've had bad internet connection. Like sometimes things cut out. We were having problems in our first stream about we remember that we had audio difficulties.
Oh yeah, we spent the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, of the first
fixing our audio.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was interesting, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's perfectly fine. So evil AI, right? A way that you could vary the trope is that you have AIs, right? And you have, say, 10 good AIs and then one bad one. And you can have your good AIs try and help you in stopping the evil AI, right? And then you could have maybe some of them get corrupted by the evil AI and turn on you. That would be nuanced and interesting instead of just humans versus one evil AI. And then there also may be competing AI. It's there's this thing called a hypertumor, which is when your cancer gets cancer, which that's like rolling a 1, right? Yeah. But
yeah. I'm wearing my 20-sided die T-shirt, which I realized I wore in the last stream.
Yeah. Yeah, but
I have done my laundry.
Yep. Yeah, I know. You have a weekly schedule. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, so basically, you might have. So you can add nuance to the story. You don't just need to have people fighting AI. Oh yeah, sorry. The thing about hypertumor, right? So you might have an evil AI, and sometimes a hypertumor. When your cancer gets cancer, it can actually kill the original cancer and cure you of cancer, which is an interesting thing, right? But you could have an evil AI story where after the first evil AI is trying to kill everyone, humans just say, hey, fight fire with fire, and they create a second evil AI that
let them fight.
Yeah, let them fight between each other because they would both see humans as the lesser threat, and so they'd be like, okay, got to get rid of this second evil AI. So those are all things, and you can vary that. If you're planning on being a writer, then you're probably a creative person, so you can vary that. But those are just some ideas to throw out.
Or you might be a college professor.
Exactly. But yeah, pretty much a lot of these tropes have such simple solutions to become less cliche. I'm just spitballing them, right? So of course you can add your own spin on it. You can come up with your own things. This is what I'm trying to encourage here about tropes. Tropes that seem lazy and that are boring to the audience are so easy to solve. just like for your own sake, there's no need to leave a tired trope in your story. So yeah.
Yeah. So evil AI is definitely a fun thing to with.
Yeah.
I like. I'm trying to think. I can't think of any Star Wars, but that just might be my limited knowledge. Do you have any examples of evil AI in Soph?
I mean, there's AI, but there's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like
no,
droids.
it really never gets
there's
touched
droids
upon.
that
Yeah, there's
work for the
droids, but like,
Empire,
Yeah.
you know, but it's
Yeah.
not like they're like sentient.
Yeah.
They're red-eyed,
They're not very
C-3PO.
intelligent. Yeah. They're just
I
Roger,
remember when
Roger.
that was a meme.
Yeah. But
I don't know. Is there any evil AI in Dune? I wouldn't think so. Doesn't
Well,
seem like
no.
the kinda-
Oh, actually, no. That's a plot point, and stole this from Dune.
Uh-huh.
There was they had their technological singular, and it went well for a while, but then the robots rose up against them, and they had I think it was called the Butlerian genocide, where the AI just kind of genocided them a bit. So
a bit.
That production was kind of halted, and I basically stole that. I threw that. I made that a part of the lore of the Tetrafam.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to admit it. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
Yeah. That's all I have to say about evil AI.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, we can hop over to the next one.
Yeah, sure. Okay, Interplanetary Warfare.
Big battle.
Yep. Big battle.
Wow.
So, here's the thing about interplanetary warfare as a trope. Oftentimes, it isn't the fact that it's cliche, it's the fact that it's both cliche and wrong a lot of the time. The fact that they just
rip it into them.
Yep, a lot of stories just do interplanetary warfare so wrongly, right? Here's one example. This is Alien Invasion. Think Independence Day 1 and 2, right? Think about movies like that. Yeah. You have aliens coming to Earth because they want the precious resources of Earth. My favorite one is when they specify they want Earth's water. And I'm like, ha! Have you ever heard of Europa? Or the Kuiper Belt? Or the Oort cloud full of comets? Have you ever heard of, like, Titan, Io, Ganymede, Callisto? There are plenty of tiny moons and tiny rocks in space, Pluto, that are full of ice, full of water ice, right? They have so much water. Earth has less water than than a lot of the Galilean moons are hypothesized to have, right? So when an alien invades Earth for water, that is just so stupid, right? Even if they have no morals, even if they don't care about human life, they're like, yeah, we don't care about the ants. Oftentimes in those stories, the human life fights back, right? And that's just inconvenient. Yeah. Like, why go through the trouble of bringing hundreds of battleships, right? And having the questionable morality. Like, some people don't care about morality, but even if you don't care about morality, why throw in that much, why pour in all those resources just to get, gross salty water from a planet that has life on it, when you could...
From a trash bag planet.
Yeah, exactly. When you could get ice literally anywhere else. There's so many other places. So that's one thing about interplanetary warfare. You really have to consider the motives. You really have to look at the motives of the invaders and say, does this make sense? Does it make sense that they would fight this planet in this way? And if it does not, then you really have to rework it, because it's just so bad, because a cliche is bad enough, right? Fine, it's a cliche, whatever. It's passable, at least, if it's founded in something, if it makes sense. But when you have a cliche that's wrong, it's just you are double bad. You
are part of the problem.
Yeah, you get an F on this assignment,
True.
Yeah, just because, So that's something that annoys
the worst
me
possible fate.
Yeah, exactly. I have I have
The highest form of punishment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so basically, right, if you're going to do interplanetary warfare between two roughly equal leveled civilizations, one thing, right, fighting over land. Let's use that as an example. Say that one planet
Yeah.
wants the land area of another planet to use for themselves, so they're going to go to war over it. That is stupid. That is not a thing that they would do, right? And here's the reason why. They could go into their asteroid belt or just a random rocky planet in their like solar system. So say Mercury, right? We could go to Mercury. We could mine out all of the iron from Mercury and we could construct cylindrical habitats, right? And set them rotating with artificial gravity, which I think might be the next slide.
It is the next one.
Yeah, so we can set them rotating, right? If you
Yeah.
can build them, depending on your materials science, right? You can get a decently sized cylindrical habitat, say 10 kilometers in radius, right?
Mhm.
And then you can, have it stretch along the other axis and make it long. And you can fill it with air, water, dirt, plants, and bam, you have a habitat that could potentially support like 1 million people. Like those are things that humanity could build in the future, and they are also things that aliens might be able to build in the future. So why go through the hassle of fighting another intelligent species? Why go through having your morality questioned?
There's no point. Yeah.
Right? Why deal with the difficulties of them fighting back when you could just go to your local dead rock, right? Your local dead rock, mine it out, and create like trillions of space stations without any war, and you will have so much more land that way. So that's another motive that just blown out of the water, right? It just completely dismantles stories like that. So one that might make sense, right? Ideological conflict. This is still difficult, but I think it's possible to justify. Whereas the water one and the land one are just you're out, right? But if two societies were to go to war over ideology, that can make sense because you could have one society is like constantly, maybe there's like terrorism, right? Maybe it's like a World War I situation where Serbia sends in like pretty much a terrorist group.
I have a video on that.
Yeah, exactly. Say one society just really hates you, right? And they are sending in like terrorists to like kill your presidents, right? Then it would make sense to go in and fight them so that they stop killing your presidents. But a problem is that you also need to come up with their motives for wanting to kill your presidents, right? So you have to consider that. But I would say that is more likely a possible thing to justify. But basically, the summary is interplanetary warfare is not going to be fought over resources like land or water or energy because you can get those resources from uninhabited planets, right, that are dead and have no life that would be willing to fight you off. And that would just be the logical thing to do because why wage war when you don't have to, right? But, ideological conflicts, diplomatic, if you're doing interplanetary trade or something and like these guys are constantly like, messing up your trade deals, like fine, that makes sense. So yeah.
Very good rant.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Very good rant. So
that was actually good.
Yeah, in Star Wars, there's obviously
yeah.
It's called like Star Wars.
Exactly.
But yeah, so there's tons of battles in Star Wars. There's like that kind of stuff. But the main reason why they fight is the political thing.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you say, Soph? Because of like the Empire versus the Rebels and like all that. It's not really usually about resources. I can't think of.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. It's like, it's definitely politics, but I mean, you have your space battles, but also another thing I really like about Star Wars is that I like a lot of things about Star Wars.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you have battles taking place on like planets, like the Battle of Hoth.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
Yeah.
So like,
Definitely.
yeah, it was, yeah, or like Endor and stuff. And so I was gonna say something. What is? Oh, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that the Earth at the very beginning of the book, the Earth is destroyed, right? And
Yep.
so the justification was that they wanted to put like, I don't know, it's like a portal or something, or like
It was
so they could teleport back and forth.
It was a highway. It was funny because first, right, the main character's house was leveled to build a highway, and then all of Earth was destroyed to build
Yeah.
a highway. So it's irony or something. I
Yeah.
liked that.
So and I was thinking, I was like, why couldn't they do it on like Jupiter or
Yeah.
something, or Saturn? Like, did I miss something, or
Yeah,
like,
I don't know. I agree
did it
with you
have
there.
to be Earth?
I'm like, yeah, they could have had their highway skew a light year to the left, right?
Yeah.
And avoid avoid humanity, like avoid the entire solar system by just skewing it a light year to the left. Or they could have, skewed it just a few like billion miles to the left, and that also avoids humanity. You might have to wipe out like Neptune or something, but neither here nor there. But yeah, so that's interesting too. Yeah, it's a bit of a plot hole, but I don't know. It's sometimes right. Sometimes it's like a side thing. It depends, right? If interplanetary warfare is the focus of your story, like in Independence Day, then you want it. Then you're more worried about the plot holes, right? I think that you can excuse a plot hole like the interstellar highway in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because like that's not the focus of the story. Like they could have just picked a million other ways that Earth could have been destroyed. Like the focus of the stories is like the ventures, like the fact that Earth is destroyed and now like you have to go and venture the galaxy. So that's okay. But when interplanetary warfare plays like a major role in your story, it's just especially damning when you don't do it right. So yeah.
Yeah, you definitely have those movies where it's just like, okay, come on, like
Yeah.
they could have done that, or
Yeah, exactly.
but I think Star Wars does do it well though.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like because it's about politics too, so
Yeah.
I mean, you can really just use that for anything, but
Exactly. Yeah.
but I really like how I think almost every Star Wars movie opens with a battle, like a space battle,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, I
Battle
think
of Hoth
so.
or something. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's all for me. Cool.
Yeah, no, you guys did great.
Cool. Yeah, I'll go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Artificial gravity, or as I so wonderfully put it, doing a spinny.
Doing the spinny.
You can do a spinny. That's what I said once to Sebastian.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's caught on.
Yeah. So artificial gravity. Artificial gravity. There are two ways that artificial gravity is typically handled in sci-fi. There's the right way and the wrong way. So the right way involves spinning an object to create centrifugal force, and therefore create an experience of gravity along the rim of a space station. And that gets a thumbs up. That gets certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. But, right, sometimes you just have gravity generators or something, and you just have gravity moving downwards across a ship. And that's not within physics. It just doesn't make sense.
Nani?
Yeah, exactly.
It do not add up. It do not add up.
Pretty much the origin of bad artificial gravity, I think, just comes from production costs of TV shows and movies, because you don't want your set to have a slight curve to it, because that is just weird. and disorienting. But I mean, if you think of the movie The Martian, they actually did it. Like they put in the elbow grease to get to get an actually like spinning space station to look like realistic. And props to that movie for that. But yeah, but sometimes there's just gravity moving downwards, and that just doesn't make sense because in space a ship is in free fall. There is no gravity acting on it, so there will not be uniform downwards gravity. You can have radial gravity from spinning, which is just gravity that moves you away from a central point, and that's what you're doing a spinny. That's what you get from that. But if you are just having plain old like gravity generators, then your story isn't very convincing. So that's just an easy fix. So I would say the trope of having bad artificial gravity, especially if you're writing a book, it's so unnecessary because you're not worried about production costs. If you're making a movie, you have to worry about set design. But if you're writing a book, just write the space station was circular. Bam. All problems fixed. You don't have to worry about.
Yeah, that's a good point.
People,
I guess that's why I kind of like writing. I respect it a lot because it's like where you can truly be like the most creative.
Yeah,
and you're not really limited by anything other than like logic and physics.
Yup, exactly. But yeah, so yeah, make sure if you're writing especially, just do correct artificial gravity so that you don't have to be condescended to by a 15-year-old online, right?
You won't get berated.
You won't get
by
berated.
The gravity max law.
Exactly. So yeah, if you're writing especially, you can do artificial gravity, but it kind of makes sense in movies, although I don't like it, but I accept the fact that it is more expensive to build set designs that would match a spinning space station. I'm like, all right, you got me there. That would be more expensive. But it just adds so much more by making it realistic, in my opinion. So, yeah.
No.
Artificial gravity. Try spinning. That's a nice trick.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do a spinny.
Yep.
Do a spinny. Somebody commented that. I didn't just come up with that, no.
Oh yeah. It's Daikaiju Productions.
Oh yeah, thank you,
spinning.
Jacob, for making up like a majority of this chat.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, that's what isn't that like young Anakin in The Phantom Menace or something?
Yes, it is.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Now this is pod racing. Yeah.
So yeah, gravity can be cheeky.
Yes.
Make it yourself.
Make it yourself. Yeah.
Hi,
exactly.
I'm Bob Vance. Vance Artificial Gravity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fine, I'll do it myself. Yeah, that's what you gotta do with artificial gravity. But yeah, that's it for me for artificial gravity.
Yeah, artificial gravity's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes you like gravity so much you want to take it out to space.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's just, like I was saying earlier with the economy part, it's just immersion,
exactly.
And it's just being realistic. It's just another tier of thinking.
Yeah.
And it can add to how real your world seems.
Yeah.
No matter what medium,
Exactly. Yeah, I love doing
And it's not like you need to have like in-depth math done on it. You can just be like, and there was centrifugal force.
Yep. Yeah, you don't even need to do the math. And if you want to do the math, it is very simple math to do. It's just v squared over r.
Quick maths.
Yeah. It's just velocity squared divided by radius. And bam, that's it.
There you go.
I love doing a spinny because like it just sounds so cool. It sounds so cool. Not when you say doing a spinny, but when you say cylindrical rotating habitat or O'Neill cylinder, then it sounds cool.
The cylinder.
Yep.
Your Utopia thing.
Yep, cylinder, right? It would be so cool to just walk outside in the morning and look up and you just see your neighbor mowing the lawn and you're like, huh, ain't that a thing?
Hey, neighbor.
Exactly.
Hey, neighbor, what's up? Me.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, neighbor, what's up?
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Oh my gosh. But yeah, that's hilarious. Artificial gravity, it's so fun. So yeah. That's that.
Soph, you a
Yeah.
fan of artificial gravity?
Oh yeah, definitely, of course.
Quote Sophia. Yeah, definitely, of course.
No, man, I'm definitely a fan. I don't know, yeah, Star Wars does it. Star Wars just kind of cheats a little.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh yeah, Millennium Falcon isn't spinning, but there's gravity. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh
that's.
yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah,
Wait,
exactly.
Oh
they
God.
don't do a spinny Star Wars.
I never thought about that.
But it makes
You're right.
sense. I mean, the first one came out in the 70s, so you just got to think of production costs there.
That's true.
So like it's passable. Also, they already do have F.T.L travel, and if you have F.T.L, you might as well throw in gravity generators too, just because it's like we're already breaking physics, so you know, right?
What's a little more?
Yeah, what's a little more physics breaking? But yeah, when they have artificial gravity and it kind of breaks the realism. It takes you out of the story just a little bit more, which is a problem. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, but a second way you could do artificial gravity is the way they do it in the show The Expanse, where it's called flip and burn, where what you do is you just continuously accelerate towards your destination, then halfway there, you flip around and continuously decelerate. And if you accelerate and decelerate at 9.807 meters per second squared, then, you know, you simulate gravity. And you don't have to do a spinny. You get fully downwards gravity. The one problem with that is that it would take an enormous amount of fuel, just because you have to constantly have those rocket boosters running. Most of our missions are just coasting along most of the time. So it would add a lot of cost. But
Yeah.
that is a second mode of artificial gravity that you could use in your story if you want to. So, yeah. But it only works for things that are like in transit. Because if something's stationary, it can't continuously accelerate and be stationary. Because acceleration implies motion. Just, yeah. I hope I don't have to explain that. Right? But yeah. So if you're having like travel, like in my second book, I have some interplanetary travel that recruits flip and burn methods to get to their destinations. So that's your artificial gravity. So if you're in transit, you don't necessarily have to do a spinny, but you can if you want to be more fuel efficient. And if you are stationary, you definitely should do a spinny. So yeah, that's my rant on doing a spinny. I'm gonna go to the next slide. Apocalypse.
Remember when things were bad? Now they're worse.
Exactly.
Welcome to the apocalypse.
Very well said.
That's my intro.
Nice.
Yeah, you know what an apocalypse means. We're not giving a definition.
Yep.
So this is definitely a common trope, and this is where, like I said earlier, like the only way futuristic story without advanced technology is in the event of apocalypse.
Yeah.
So yeah, if it's like, oh, the world got destroyed because like aliens invaded, and then or there was like a nuclear war, and like everyone's pretty much dead now, and now we're living in the fallout. You know, it's those kind of apocalypses. Apocalypses.
Apocalypses are like dystopia's little brother, like dystopia's anarchist little brother, because things are bad, but the reason things are bad is because social order has been completely removed.
Yeah.
Whereas dystopia is things are bad, and the reason things are bad is that too much social order has been enforced. You need that perfect balance where there's a bit of social order, but not too much. So that's how to keep things good. But yeah, so apocalypse. Apocalypse can be a tired trope sometimes if, well, it really depends, but you know, you have your
zombies are overdone.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone had to say, everyone was thinking it.
Yeah.
Everyone at home had it in their minds.
They were thinking
zombies are overdone.
Yeah, zombies, they're overdone as a trope, but you know, of course, just because something's overdone doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you have to do it good sorry to everyone that is obsessed over the distinction between good and well.
Dude, I don't know if you can come back to the Gravity Max live stream.
I know, exactly.
It's now the 128-second live stream where I'm
exactly.
live for 128 seconds.
Exactly. 128 minutes.
God.
Anyways, yeah, so you have to do an apocalypse well, and you have to make it unique if you want to do a zombie apocalypse. But yeah, so the best thing to do is to just do it rationally, avoid a lot of the, like, missteps that zombie apocalypse stories will tell. Like, something they don't often tell, right, is that if the zombie virus is, like, transmitted by a bite, right, by the zombie biting you, right, that is transmission through contact with the blood, right? Now, guess what happens if you live in an area with mosquitoes, and the mosquitoes bite a zombie, and then they bite you? Then you become a zombie, and you haven't even been, like, bitten by a zombie. It's just the mosquitoes being mosquitoes and transmitting diseases like they do. You know.
Way to go, mosquitoes.
Way to go, mosquitoes. Mosquitoes, other than humans, are the most dangerous animal to humans. It's humans and then mosquitoes. So, yeah. Mosquitoes suck. But, regardless, right? You don't really see in zombie apocalypse, like, movies or TV shows, you don't see them constantly applying copious amounts of bug spray. Right? So, that's an interesting thing you might want to consider. Or you can say, like, oh, it just doesn't work with mosquitoes for some reason. But again, every time you do that, that's points off for creativity. If you're being
they're like, only if a zombie bites you. But then I raise the question, zombie mosquitoes.
Ooh, yeah. What if, like, yeah, exactly. What if a zombie bites a mosquito, and then the mosquito bites its mosquito friends?
Yeah.
Yeah, what about that?
Yeah, what now? What now?
What now? What do you do now, exactly? Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is the chain of events I could see. Like, a zombie might bite a dog, right? So then you have zombie dogs. Then the zombie dogs might bite a cat. And then you have zombie cats. Then it might bite a mouse. You have zombie mouses. And then it,
zombie mice?
Yeah.
Do you mean zombie mice?
I do mean zombie mice. I'll stop.
Zombie mouses?
I was on too much of a roll. I had too many good words that...
and you fell. You tripped.
I did. Hey, it's not my fault that English has inconsistent pluralization. You know? Why dogs, cats, rats, mice, geese. But why not meese? Yeah, that's the question. It's inconsistent. You expect me to keep up with this? Hey, how many heists do you own? How many houses? Yeah. How many heists are on your street, right? It should be consistent. Cacti, cactuses, right? That's a question. Octopus, octopi, right? That's a question.
It's not octopi, it's octopuses.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I just hate pluralization. So inconsistent. Like, at least if there were consistent rules, like if at least every word that had the ouse ending would change into ice, like then I wouldn't object as much. And if every word with an oose ending turned into ease, I would be like, okay, you know what? It's complicated, but it's logical. You know what? That's the larger trend here with your tropes. As long as it's logical, it is approved by Gravity Max of the Gravity Max live stream. But English, mouse, mice, houses, that is one of life's greatest questions.
Yes. All right. Apocalypse.
Yep. Apocalypses.
Yeah, so it's been done. Again, I think we've gotten better as a society from doing this. Because I remember when, like, all the books were about apocalypses.
Yep.
And it was all just zombie apocalypse, or it was
nuclear
zombie apocalypse, but the main character is a girl, and then it was like aliens and creating apocalypse,
Yep.
and then they shifted to dystopias.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
but I can't really remember any good apocalypse stories. Like, there's the Walking Dead comics, of course,
Uh-huh.
which are pretty popular, and I read.
No,
But
I do like the apocalypse story of with Will Smith and his dog. That's like,
oh
such a
yeah,
sad-
I Am Legend.
Yeah,
that was
I
that
Am
was pretty
Oh
good.
yeah, that was good. That was good.
I like that one actually, because like they have the zombies are actually pretty unique. Like the way that they can't go out in sunlight like Minecraft zombies. That was pretty interesting.
Minecraft is the best apocalypse video game.
Exactly.
Changed my mind.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the zombies like that was unique because most zombie apocalypse stories like they don't have Minecraft zombie rules. And the point wasn't the zombies. The point was the sad dog times. Oh,
Yeah.
which we need a tier list of top 10 like sad dog movies. I nominate Marley and Me, I Am
Old Yeller.
Legend,
Yeah.
Jurassic Park 2 because a dog dies in it when the T-Rex goes to San Francisco.
The
what
Secret
else?
Life of Pets, because there's a dog in that, and the movie is god awful.
Exactly. Yeah. Different definition of sad for sad movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, so apocalypses, just make sure to write them unique. Like if you think about modern society and how attached we are to our phones and our computers and our Amazon one-day shipping and our cars and stuff like that, it would be really interesting to like analyze and look at how people react to having that stuff taken away from them. They can no longer use their phones. Like,
yeah, no,
there's
I've
more
actually talked
electricity.
about that on stream, and I guess this is good apocalypse story. It's called I think it's called 1 Second After.
Ooh, yeah, you've talked about this. Oh,
Yeah, I've
like,
talked about that. That is exactly what you.
yeah.
It's literally about exactly what you
Yeah.
just said.
Again, I've said this every time we've brought it up, but I want to start reading it. I have so many books. Yeah. I finished 11/22/63, which great book. And I am currently almost done with Green Mars. And once I finish Green Mars, I don't know. 1 Second After might be the book I read next, but
Ooh,
who knows?
all right.
It's on the list. I've got like 3
It's on the
possibilities
list.
of what I might read next. So, yeah. But yeah, apocalypses. You can analyze, how people change when they're separated from their phones, and they have to like if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? How there's just like personal safety is the lowest need. Then you have, I don't know all of them, but eventually at the top you have like self-actualization and fulfillment, right? And so
Yeah.
people in modern society that have like all these luxuries, they're able to get the first few tiers on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They're able to get those just easily. And so like most conflict in modern society is people trying to get the 4th and 5th levels of the hierarchy of needs. But in an apocalypse scenario, you have the first 3 levels just ripped away. And now people are just like working just to get the first 2 levels. Like it's really interesting. It is an interesting situation, apocalypses. And they can be done well. But just don't do like the cliche thing like there's always
Don't do zombies. That's what everyone's thinking.
Pretty much, yeah. You can do zombies well, but if you want, it's best to just, strike a new path out into the deep, dark depths of unexplored book premises. Try making something unique. Like, don't include, like, the obligatory, like, poorly written romance in every apocalypse story, right?
Yep.
Like, they always have one poorly written romance. Don't have the kid that tragically dies, like, halfway through the apocalypse story, right? Or, don't have the hero that sacrifices themselves to save the kid by the end of the apocalypse stories. Like, the things that are a bit cliche. Like, again, individual cliches are fine, but they start adding up, right? It's like having a few drops of poison. Each cliche is a few drops of poison. And if you have too many, then you die of poisoning. But if you only have a few, then you can, I don't know, gain immunity or something. Analogy's gone too far. Point is, you don't want too many cliches. If you have cliches in your story, which you're pretty much guaranteed to have cliches at some point in your story, right? You want to use those cliches wisely. Only use them when you have to. They're a limited resource before they start to make your story bad. So you just got to be careful of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I'll ever write about a quote-unquote apocalypse, but
I don't think
it does
so
seem
either.
somewhat fun to play around with.
It
but
does.
I don't know.
It does. Maybe a short story. You ever
Yeah.
consider writing short stories? Sometimes I'm like, oh, that would be a good short story. But yeah, maybe I can make an anthology. That's a fun word. Instead of saying a collection of short stories, an anthology.
Anthology.
Yeah, that's a fun, like, it's also a store that, like, you know, that, like, white moms shop at. Anthology. Have you heard of that store?
Oh, yeah.
Or no, wait, sorry. Anthropology. That's the story. That's the store.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, I don't know.
Anthropology.
I
Sorry,
do
but
not
that
go
is also
shopping.
it's also a real word, like the study of human history. you know?
Humans, yeah, the study of human history.
Yeah, so anthropology. But yeah, anthology. Anyway,
But
that's
it's
for.
spelled wrong, right? It's spelled with like an I.
Yeah, it's spelled
The store.
anthropology with an IE, the store, instead of a Y. But yeah, that's it for me for Apocalypse. If you guys have anything else, I'm just gonna go to the next slide.
Soph, you got anything?
I mean, there's not really apocalypses in Star Wars, but
Yeah.
Order 66 was kind of done like an apocalypse, like just
Yeah.
I feel like
That's true.
cinematically and everything.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
prequels, I don't know. I have mixed feelings. I feel like the prequels they're like really good for themes. Like they have really good political themes. But then you you start analyzing that and you're like, wow, these are some actually like really great political themes. But then you get a line like, I hate sand, it's coarse, it's rough, it gets everywhere, and you're like, oh, okay, this is stupid. But every once in a while, when you've gone a stretch without a bad line like that, then you can actually kind of appreciate, like, actually that's a pretty good message. Like, this is really interesting. But yeah, so you have to filter through, you know. But yeah, so I'm going to go to the next slide. Alien language, or languages, but I'm not going to pluralize that right now because I have the slide. So alien languages, right? What do you think? Star Wars has a lot of interesting languages.
Yeah, that's the one that's up, right? Yeah, that's Aurebesh. That's the
Yeah.
language of Star Wars, and I think it's just a simple.
Yeah.
Like, there's no rules to it or anything. It's just literally like English, but with
just
characters.
transliteration. Yeah, at that point, it's just like a font, you know. But yeah, it's still interesting because this is something about. It's not exactly alien, but in my story, language, you know, language evolves over time. That is just inevitable. You read Shakespeare and you're like, what is this? And that is considered late modern English, or early modern English. It's still in the same category of modern English, right? Then you look at Middle English and Old English, and you're like, where am I? Germany? Like, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like German or something. And so, since language evolves over time, in my story, that takes place 83 or 82 now because it is a new year. 82 years in the future, you have to there are a few new words that exist, like a few different like ways that people speak. Especially in my second book. In my second book, which takes place 29 years after the first one, they have words like a Vrame, which is a VR game, but they shorten it because the youth tends to do that, like young people.
Yeah.
We have slang words.
Why
like
do they say
spam and lit.
death? Like, why is death the swear?
Oh, okay. Death is the swear because like people basically don't die as much, right? And it's becoming taboo because They are very close to achieving like radical life extension technology. So when someone
Yeah.
dies, it's seen as like more of a tragedy because it's like, oh, if they could have just lived another decade, then there would have been technology available for them to live another 100 years. So the tragedy is worsened. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so that's why they say. That's why
Oh,
they curse
death.
like that.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, death. Yeah, I know. It's a little odd, but I'm like, hey, it doubles as like one, it's an interesting thing, right? Two, it allows you to not use actual swear words in your book. Yeah, eventually they say like, damn it, I think at some point in my book. Well, it's
Yeah, I think I have more
yeah, vulgarity.
of
Yeah.
my book than you have in your entire story.
Yeah, exactly. In the first 5 pages. Yeah, no, I would say, well, in my book, it's more like the younger people that use the new swear words, like, oh, death. And
Mhm.
it's like the older people still say, like, damn it. Just because
Yeah.
that's how things work now.
Yeah, and that's just another layer of version.
Yep, because evolution of language always starts with youth. Like, in the future, can you imagine a formal business meeting that involves, our current slang, like lit, fam, right? Like words like that.
Like, hey, dude, this recession, the government going ain't lit.
Yeah, exactly.
The stocks be falling.
Exactly. Yeah, like people.
Rip to the stocks.
Referencing memes as well. Imagine if that's just like 30 years down the line, you're in a formal business meeting, and someone's like, all right, so this quarter has been lit. And I would like to thank my team. I view you guys as a real fam. Oh my god, that would be horrible. Right?
Yeah, so it
yeah.
looks like Donald Stevens has yeeted himself off a building. His wife and children are grieving.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's human language in the future. But what about alien languages? So when developing an alien language, so this is a trope, right? Something you don't want to do. Let me think. I don't know many tropes about this subject, but do you know any like tired tropes?
Yeah, just don't make it like too similar to English.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like supposed to be aliens, so like why make it similar to English? I've messed around with language a lot.
Yeah.
But I think for my book I need to go beyond what I was doing. You know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, definitely, because so this, right, is just replacing letters, right? And that's like very basic, right? Replacing English letters can be like, oh, okay, well that's easy. I just, cipher that out. But then, even if you were to get to the level of detail where you have a new word in your language for every English word, but they still have the same English grammar, so like instead of like the quick I don't know the sense, whatever, the quick fox jumps over the lazy dog, right? You know that sentence.
Yeah, the quick brown fox jumps over the white lazy dog.
Okay, that one. Yeah. So that sentence, if your language just has a word for the, say it's like deck, and then like the word for quick is like like flam, like, and you just have things just like go in that order, and it has the same English order and the same like punctuation. That is also boring, and it's a trope, and it's no dice, right? Like alien languages wouldn't just happen to be that similar. Like one thing I'm doing, like I have a little alien story like in the woodworks, right? And I am making their language use a lot of compound words, more like German or something, where they use a lot of compound words in the German language. So I am having my language use a lot of compound words, just to make it more unique from English. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the
nice.
if you look at the languages of the world too, There is so much variety in the languages of the world. If you pretty much just modeled your alien language on some random language that wasn't English, then you would probably get a pass. Like, it wouldn't be lazy. Like, if you base your language on something from, say, like Thailand, right? Or like something from like Aboriginal people in Australia, just like some language that not a lot of people know, simply doing that, making a carbon copy of an Earth language, could be seen as unique just because of how tired and lazy a lot of these alien languages are, just English clones. So, just, go off, do something, uh, make your language unique. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think we can head over to our next one.
Cool. Okay. Let's see. Wait, did I? Yeah. Okay.
Time travel.
There we go.
Time is a dimension.
Exactly.
It's the fourth
Yeah.
dimension. You can travel along the fourth dimension. How? We'll tell you.
Yeah. Oh, Let's
talk about that.
That was very similar to, if you've ever read H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, like the scientist's explanation for his time machine, he says, like, suppose time is just a fourth dimension. Why not move backwards and forwards across time as you can in space? Great book, I would suggest. I would suggest reading The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. It's more of a novella, and it's so cool to read it. It was written in like 1895. It's the first time travel story, so it's so cool. But yeah, so time travel. Time travel as a trope is kind of like interplanetary warfare as a trope, because it's one of those tropes where the problem is that not only is it cliche, it's cliche and wrong. So you have a time travel thing, right? Say Back to the Future. I love Back to the Future, but they're kind of guilty of this.
Yeah.
If you look at like the grandfather paradox, right, where Marty, he goes back in time and he accidentally makes it so that his parents don't meet, and then he has like a week where he starts like fading out of existence. Like, he has a week to get them back together, and that's like the plot conflict of the movie, right? But in reality, what should have happened is the instant that he messed up the timeline, he should have just blipped out, just disappeared. Of course, it's also a paradox, so his not being there would have made it so that his parents would have met and, I don't know, destroyed the space-time continuum or something. But the point is, if you're going to do time travel, you got to make it logical. You got to avoid plot holes. I would say it's hard to find a time travel story that does not have any plot holes. So I'm especially like going to be careful with this because I have time travel in my universe, so I just want to make sure it's all good, all squared away, Sorry.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the harder, one of the hardest things to tackle.
Yeah, very difficult to do it in a way that doesn't create a ton of plot holes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, time travel.
All right, so
yeah.
Time travel has been used in a lot of different mediums.
Yep.
Like you just finished reading
11/22/63.
Yeah.
Oh,
I couldn't remember the first number. I was like,
yep.
God damn it.
That's how I remember the date of the Kennedy assassination.
How did you like the time travel in there?
I actually liked it. So the time travel in 11/22/63 was many worlds time travel, and this is one of the major solutions to any time travel paradoxes, is just many worlds. You aren't affecting your own past, you're affecting a different version of the past that will create a different version of the future. And so that's perfectly fine. In 11/22/63, it's totally logical. I would say like no plot holes really in that story that I could tell, think about it. It's just go back in time, things change, then you go back to the future, and like there's no worry that like you're gonna cause yourself to not exist. Like there's nothing like that. So I think the time travel was done very well. in 11/22/63.
It's good.
But yeah, so time travel. That's one suggestion I would make. If you want to do a time travel story and you want more freedom with your storytelling and you don't want to worry about paradoxes, just make it many worlds time travel. That's what I'm gonna do. Like, I want my time travel to be many worlds time travel. So many worlds time travel, what it implies. This is one theory of like the universe, pretty much, is that whenever you go back in time, it creates a new timeline, like the instant you go back. And whatever you do in the past changes the future. And when you go back to the future, you're not actually going back to anything. You are going forwards along this new timeline that you just created, and you are going to a new future. So, say that you go back in time, right? The year is 2020 right now. So you go back in time to the year 2000 and step on a butterfly, right? And then you go back to the future. So back to the year 2020. What ends up happening is that you have one timeline where everything is normal, the butterfly is not stepped on, and in the year 2020, you disappear from existence, right? Then you have an alternate timeline where everything is normal until a person, you, appears just out of nowhere, that you appear and you step on a butterfly and then you disappear again. And then 20 years later, you appear again in the future. So it creates two parallel timelines that run concurrently. And there's no paradoxes. There's no way to cause a paradox. The thing you have to worry about in many worlds time travel, though, this is the one thing. You just have to worry about character and organization motives. Because if there is many worlds time travel, right, then someone trying to do something like change the past for their own profit, right, like you don't have to worry about that because they're not actually going to change the past. They're just going to create an alternate timeline, and that means they'll be out of your hair for good. So you ever see a plot in a time travel story where it's like someone goes back in time to like become very successful, like, you know, and they're the antagonist, or maybe that's what the antagonist is doing. The antagonist is going back in time to profit, right, for their own profit, and the protagonist is trying to stop them, right? In a many worlds time travel story, an antagonist goes back in time and is like, I'm gonna create a timeline where you were never born and where I have billions of dollars. You'll just be like, okay. Like, your best move there would actually...
That doesn't affect...
Yeah, your best move, it would be beneficial to you to let them do that. Because they will no longer be in your timeline. So if they are a prick, right? If they're an annoying person that is constantly thwarting your whatevers, right? Then when they go back in time and create a timeline where you're never born, you're fine because they're not affecting your actual past. You still exist in your timeline. And they are not there anymore because they are in an alternate reality where you don't exist, which means that both people are happy, right? That's the real solution. If you are annoyed with somebody and they're annoyed with you and you just don't want to have to see each other anymore, then bam, all you got to do is use many worlds time travel, go back in time and create a reality where they don't exist. Then you don't exist in the original reality and they don't exist in your new reality. Bam, problem solved. But yeah, so that's just
so there you go.
Yeah, but that's just a funny little... Yeah.
What do you think about time travel?
I don't know. I have a lot of time travel movies are just like really nostalgic for me because I just grew up with a lot of them, like Terminator stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those movies.
And so like the opening of Terminator is like time travel.
Yeah.
Just they're able to go to the past and whatever. But I was always like kind of skeptical, I feel like, because there's like a solid way to go into... I mean, it's not solid, but there's like a logical way to like time travel into the future, and that would be to like go at the speed of light for like a extended amount of time, and then you haven't changed, but suddenly you're in the future. But there's no like way, I feel like, to go back in time unless you have like a DeLorean. But,
yeah, totally. Yeah, that's totally true.
So
yeah, future time travel is 100% like certified fresh. I've made that joke probably 5 times now. Uh, Time travel to the future is allowed by Einstein's theory of relativity. So yeah, that's fair game. You can have time travel to the future stories.
So, this is a first in Gravity Max history. The Gravity Max live stream history. Yeah. But I actually need to go.
Oh.
Unfortunately, believe it or not.
Oh.
Yeah. I know. It's terrible. Soph, you're going to have to cover me.
Okay.
Yeah. You're going to have to be me.
I'll try.
Okay?
Okay.
Big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to both you guys.
Okay.
But as you probably know, Max, I have a terrible sunburn right now.
Oh,
it is incredibly hot in my room.
Okay.
And it is making it incredibly difficult to sit still.
Okay.
So I don't think I can give you guys the quality.
Yeah.
Or our audience the quality that I usually give. So unfortunately, I'm gonna go and treat my sunburn with a tea compress.
Yeah. If you want to come back, like if you're feeling better.
Yeah. If I can, I will.
Okay. Cool.
I give you that promise, but. I'm sorry. This is a first. Hopefully, it's also
fine.
a last.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Oh,
so you're me now.
Television.
Okay. Just make remarks on everything and just
like relief.
Berate Max, make him feel stupid, and most importantly, have fun. But I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, it's fine.
I'll see you hopefully.
Yeah. I'll see you later.
No, totally. Go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So yeah. Well, that's pretty much it for me from time travel. Many worlds theory makes it easier to do time travel without plot holes. You just need to keep in mind the fact that character motives will be different with many worlds time travel. So yeah. All right. I'm gonna go to the next slide. So literary devices. Literary devices are used in all genres. And some of these literary devices do apply to like more than just science fiction, but these are some important devices to science fiction. So if you use these devices effectively, then you can write a good science fiction story. So let's begin. Okay, so STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That is STEM. And STEM is very important in a sci-fi story, just because of the science aspect. When I was writing A Truly Dead Rock, there was a lot of math involved. I had to do like a lot of equations. There was a lot of science. I needed to look at maps of the moon. I needed to look at the geological features and just, consider that. I also, like whenever there was transportation, I needed to use some math to consider travel speed, stuff like that. So that's pretty much what STEM does. If you are writing science fiction, then it's a really useful tool to have under your belt to know the equations involved in what you're writing. So if you're doing a spinny, right, if you're doing centrifugal force, it's useful to know that V squared over R is your centrifugal force, right? If you are building a planet, right, if you have a planet and you know the mass of the planet and the radius of the planet, then you can figure out the surface gravity of the planet. So things like that help add realism to your story. Yeah. So what do you think about this?
So I was thinking about in the Phantom Menace, the underwater, the underwater city. So I know
Gungans, right? Yeah.
George Lucas. Yeah. So I know George Lucas and his team spent like months just like making that city and like designing it so it would actually work, like actually make like an underwater city possible, basically, like the science of it and like the logistics of it.
That's really
and so and so I think it's like overlooked sometimes, like how much work authors and like directors have to put in to some of the like logistical stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's really interesting. I never knew that. Wow. But yeah, definitely. You need to put in, as a writer, you need to also, as a writer, you're typically, right brain, and then if you're writing sci-fi, then you should also consider the left brain aspect of it. I don't know. I'm pretty sure the right brain, left brain stuff is pretty much pseudoscience, but
Yeah.
right? I'm pretty sure it's like, like
Yeah.
yeah, like there are actual cases of people that have had like entire like halves of their brain removed, like they've had the right half removed or the left half removed, and they're just fine.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's really weird, but neuroscience is weird. I think it's just a common myth, though, that right brain controls creativity, left brain controls science. But using that myth, you need to incorporate both sides of your brain when you're writing a science fiction story, because there's science and there's fiction. So you need to be good at writing fiction, and you need to be good with science. So that's pretty much that. Um, yeah. So yeah. So that's STEM. Um, yeah, let's go to the next one. Okay, allegory. So oftentimes, if you think of like a dystopian novel, a lot of novels in general tend to be allegories. And what an allegory is it's an extended metaphor. So it's basically your entire novel is a metaphor for something else. And so on screen right now, we have a book called The Crucible by like I forgot his first name, like Arthur Miller. I know it's Miller, his last name, but oh, it's written right there. Okay. um, well, at least I got it right. Um, but yeah, so The Crucible by Arthur Miller was an allegory for the era of McCarthyism in the United States, where people were accused of being communists and they were being tried by the House Un-American Activities Committee. Um, and Arthur Miller objected to these hearings, and he actually, after he wrote this, he was called in by the House Un-American Activities Committee, and he was questioned. They said, like, you're a communist. Um, and so the reason why he wrote this book, The Crucible, which is about the Salem witch trials, is that he was saying that this McCarthyism is a witch hunt. It's much like the Salem witch trials because there isn't much evidence that these people are actually communists, yet they are being accused anyways, and they are being compelled to confess. So it's a really good allegory. So that's where you can use allegories in your story. You can make a story that at least one aspect of it, like you can say, have one aspect of your story that is supposed to be a reference to something today, and it can display the flaws in a modern system because you can say, like, sometimes it's easier to point out the flaws of something that you're removed from. So in the age of McCarthyism, people weren't really saying, like, well, some people were objecting to it, but some people were like, no, this makes sense. We need to see if there are any, like, communists. We need to try them, make sure no one's trying to undermine the American government. But if you were to look back to the era of the witch trials, you would be like, oh, yeah, they were crazy. They were totally wrong. So being able to see your time and something occurring in your reality, being framed by another period of time or by a fictionalized event can actually help bring clarity to the situation. So that's the use of an allegory. Yeah.
Yeah, 1984 does that really well. I mean, I forget like the specifics of it and
Yeah.
like what was going on. What was going on at the time that he wrote it, but
I think it
that
was
that like
I think it was the spread of like totalitarian governments like during the Cold War, I'm pretty sure.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. So that
And I know Animal Farm is about
yeah.
communism.
Yeah, totally. And actually, it's like really specific to Russia. If you look at Russian history, Animal Farm is pretty much just the Russian Revolution. If you look at it, I think Snowball. I think that character is supposed to be Lenin, um, and then you have, I think Napoleon is Stalin. If you look at Animal Farm as an allegory for the Russian Revolution. But yeah, it's definitely really interesting. So an allegory is very useful in your sci-fi stories to, like, what's it called? To portray a theme that you want the reader to take away. Um, it's very effective in like giving the people a theme. Like I have themes in my stories. I'm not sure. I didn't intentionally make any allegories, but I did intentionally include themes in the story, like themes about technology, about reality, about aesthetic design, like what's important, what's not important. Um, so an allegory is a way that you can like show these themes. So yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right, that's all from me. Do you have anything else, or I'll change the slide?
Oh, I mean, I think, yeah, it's just used to send a message about the time period
Yeah,
that
exactly.
we're living in. So
Yeah. Cool.
yeah.
So prediction. This is from yeah. So prediction is very useful in science fiction, especially science fiction that takes place in the future. In my story, I have a spreadsheet on my Google Drive, and the spreadsheet is called Future History. I like to call it Future History. And it is pretty much just, a series of events that occur on Earth, on the Moon, on Mars, on Venus between 2020 and 2102 when my story takes place. Because, if you were to read a story that takes place today, you would have all the context of recent, if it took place in America, recent American history to back up the story. So it is important to come up with your own future history and to come up with how things like play out in the future so that your story can be contextualized by its own history. Um, yeah, so that's the value of prediction. I think Star Wars, they have a lot of like historical.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a huge like timeline, right?
Yeah, it's like, and like if you look on websites and stuff, people use the terms like BBY or ABY, that's before the Battle of Yavin and after the Battle of Yavin.
Uh-huh.
So like, oh yeah, it's like really fleshed out, and
Yeah.
it just gets like so complex. And even you have like the Old Republic, which takes place like thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
And there's like comics on that and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And so it just, yeah.
Huh. Yeah, so when would Star Wars, when would A New Hope take place? Like, what year, BBY or ABY?
It would be 0 BBY.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, okay.
Mm.
Huh. That's cool. So that's the epoch.
So I thought that was really interesting because, like, we have, BC and then AD.
Yeah. Yeah,
we have, like,
cool.
the birth of Christ for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's interesting.
You have the Battle of Yavin.
But yeah, so Star Wars is great because they have, I think, like George Lucas, isn't it based on like books, or there's books based on Star Wars or something like that? Like the extended universe?
I think, yeah. There's, oh my god, there's so many extended universe books, and it's just like it's like a lot. And so it's books based on the movies.
Okay.
And so you have things taking place like after episode 6.
Yeah.
Like after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Or like
Mandalorian.
Like I was saying before, like the comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Mandalorian.
Yeah. So that's great. Because Star Wars, it gives you a really rich timeline, and that helps the setting. That gives you better context for all your stories. So it's important to be able to predict, and you don't need to like make predictions that actually come true. I mean, there are countless. It's fun, actually. I find it fun to read sci-fi stories that take place in the future, but the future has already passed by now, because it's hilarious to see when they're wrong. Like Back to the Future 2, the time that they're in 2015, like that's hilarious. Everyone wears two ties instead of one. Like price of gas is like $100, like something crazy, which I mean, like to fill up a tank. which I'm pretty sure that's probably how it is in California right now. Like they have high gas prices, so that might not be as wrong. But like hoverboards, stuff like that, that is interesting to see. So you don't.
I wish we had hoverboards like that.
Yeah, that would be so fun. But yeah, so your predictions, they don't need to be right. At the time of writing your story, they just need to be some logical evolution of the current status of things if your story takes place in the future. Of course, if your story is like not related to humanity at all, then wherever your starting point is, you need to have time move in a consistent manner. Like, if there's a movement across your fictional society, a movement towards more authoritarianism and centralized control, right? Then you won't have a story like set in that timeline, right? Like you have a story set in that time, and then you have a story set 10 years later, and it's all about like it's set in a society of anarchy, right? Like that just wouldn't make sense. You just want to be self-consistent, pretty much. So you want to be able to have a series of events that makes enough sense. Pretty much, it doesn't need to be right because no one can be right about the future. Otherwise, they'd have like beaten the stock market, right? But like, yeah, so you just need something logical is all. And also, I find it endearing to read a story that was written in the past and has an obsolete version of the future. So it's not like you'll be seen as like it's not like you'll be judged by the future, right? That your story's so inaccurate just because I actually like enjoy seeing like alternate versions of the future that aren't like accurate. Like I find that funny. But yeah.
Do you know the website futuretimeline.com by any chance?
I do not.
Do you know what that is?
I do not. Sorry. Yeah, I don't. What is on that website?
So basically, it's just I don't know if it's one guy or it's like a whole bunch of people. They basically it's basically a timeline, but it's of everything in the future, and so they go like thousands of years in the future, and it's pretty cool. Just like just to look at it if you're bored. But
are they like like events that we know, like astronomical events like that we know are going to happen, or are they predicting things like
it's also predicting things like lunar colonies and like governments in space or something, or like when humans will reach like immortality, like hundreds of thousands of years in the future or something. I don't know. I was making that up, but
yeah, that's interesting.
So
because some future timelines are just like there will be a solar eclipse on this date, and that's like obvious. Like those are things that we know will happen. But yeah, that's really interesting. Did you know there's actually a profession called futurism? Like, have you heard of a futurist? It's someone that like predicts the future. Like that's their whole like they make it their business to predict the future. And it's great to read predictions from futurists. Sometimes they get it wrong still just because no one can 100% know the future. But it's interesting to see the predictions of these actual professional people whose like whole job it is to predict the future. So yeah. So being able to predict the future in your sci-fi story is an important aspect. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, so this is world building. This slide is just here because we did a whole stream on world building last week. So if you want to hear about world building, then you should go watch that stream. World building is a very important topic. So yeah, so that's it. I'm going to go to the next slide again. Yeah, because like we already made a stream on it, so we don't need to do an abridged version. You know what I mean? So yeah. Okay. So framing. Sebastian put this in, like he put it in a frame, but framing is what exactly is framing? Do you remember what we were saying about framing? What Sebastian was saying about framing? Do you remember what he was saying about framing?
We need him here.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot what he was saying about it. Because I feel like framing would be like historical context, and that's more prediction.
Yeah,
So,
like context, I was gonna say.
So yeah, well, I think we pretty much covered
Oh,
that
I
with the
mean,
prediction slide. Just have context in your story. Yeah, this stream, it's a little, it's a little rough landing. But yeah, but we'll just skip this. We'll just skip this. Oh, final thoughts. Okay, cool. Well, so final thoughts. What do you think about this
I
whole
mean,
stream topic in general?
sci-fi is just something that can, because I mean, Star Wars has been going on. I keep going back to Star Wars, I know, but like
Yeah.
that's
Well,
yeah.
Sebastian, he first when he before he told me like your name, he was saying Star Wars girl. So that's how he was addressing you.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, so Star Wars has been going on since what? Like 1977.
Yep.
And yeah, that is my very loud family.
Oh, yeah, it's no problem. Yeah, 1977 is when A New Hope came out.
Yeah. And so since then, there's just been so much more like material that has come out, and so it just gets so complex. And like Dune as well. I haven't read Dune, but
Yeah.
my dad loves Dune, so according to him, it gets like really, really complex.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's I just think it's really interesting how like people can build like a fictional world.
Yeah.
And it just gets so like immersive, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly.
That just fascinates me a lot.
That's a fun part. I really like science fiction for the escapism, because day-to-day life can get a little boring, and sci-fi stories are just so cool and fascinating to imagine yourself in these foreign situations, and it's especially fun to write it too. The feeling of escapism that I feel like when I read a good sci-fi story is equal to that when I'm writing. I feel it too. So it's really fun to write and to read science fiction. So these were just some helpful tips and tricks, like things to avoid to write a good sci-fi story that'll bring other people in, that other people will like. So yeah, we have one last chat. We have Daikaiju Productions says the only people who are right about the future are the Simpsons, and that is very true. It's hilarious. I think it's just the Simpsons has so much like content that they're guaranteed to be right about something. Like broken clock is right twice a day, But yeah, so I love sci-fi. So hopefully you got something from this live stream. And thank you for being here, Sophie. It was really nice to have you on.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah. And I usually thank Sebastian, so I would like to thank my co-host Sebastian for being here most of the time. He's always fun to work with. So yeah, I guess he might rewatch this. So that's his plug. But yeah, thanks for coming again. We have our guests on multiple times, so you can come back whenever you feel like it. If you have if you have a video topic that you might want to do for a live stream, then you can come back on. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, this is so much fun.
Yeah, cool. And also, I would like to thank the audience. I would like to thank Daikaiju Productions, who is in the chat and has been chatting with us the whole time. Thank you all for watching this live stream, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.